The ancient Indian texts mention beautifully decorated chariots or entire palaces called vimmanas that could take off and, in a matter of seconds, fly away as far as space. Some people believe these vimmanas only existed in Indian mythology, but it's also possible that they were based on a real technology that had been lost over the centuries. According to the Vedas, ancient Indian religious texts, there was the elephant vimana with several engines and many other types named after animals and birds. There was one for local travel, one for visiting different countries, and one for traveling to the moon and various planets. They could develop a great speed. One vimana had the superpower of invisibility. Another one was shaped like a sphere and was built on the winds produced by Mercury. This vimana was said to generate an enormous ray like the sun and make noise like the storm's thunder. All the vimanas were unbreakable and perfect for attacks on foes. Now, to operate a vimana, you'd need to know a lot of stuff, pretty much like today's airplane pilots. 32 secrets in total. They'd cover the aircraft structure and the secrets of taking off and maneuvering without crashing. That's a good thing. The pilot was also expected to know how to be seen and unseen, how to be hidden, how to be quick, how to manage contractions and expansion, and many other tricks. To hide the flying machine from foes, the pilot was instructed to move to the 8th atmospheric layer above the Earth and use the power of dark solar rays. This instruction might sound a bit weird, but there were others, more realistic ones, which still make sense in modern aeronautics. There are sections of ancient texts on the Vimanas that focus on details like flight paths, pilot training, navigation, and even suitable clothes for pilots and recommended food for long flights. There was also a lot of technical detail about the use of heat-absorbing metals, the metals utilized, and melting points. The supporters of the theory that the Vimanas were more than just myths are sure that the ancient Indians would unlikely go into all these details just for a beautiful story. So, the flying palaces might have been real and way ahead of their time, like many other great Indian inventions. Back in the 6th century BCE, an Indian physician named Sushruta basically wrote the original guide to medicine and surgery. They even called him the father of surgery for his work. Sushruta laid down the details on hundreds of medicinal plants and described complex surgical procedures. He gave instructions on nose reconstructions and skin transplants from one part of the body to another. The original method of rhinoplasty, which involved taking a piece of skin from the forehead to reconstruct the nose, is still used today. But back then, it had a slightly different purpose than surprising your followers on social media. Those nose jobs helped out folks who had lost their noses as punishment for crimes or in fights. Now, you gotta thank an ancient Indian math prodigy for the invention of zero. It might not seem like a big deal, but without it, we would have no binary system and no computers. People before the 5th century CE were only thinking about some sort of a sign to indicate nothing. The invention made addition, subtraction, and other mathematical operations a whole lot easier. You can see the oldest zero in existence carved in the wall of a temple in Gwalior, India. The Indus Valley civilization was using rulers in 1500 BCE and earlier. Made from ivory, these rulers were found during excavations in what is present-day Pakistan and northwestern India. They were widely used in architecture with amazing accuracy. They had units corresponding to slightly over 1 inch that were marked with precise subdivisions within 5/1000ths of an inch. The next invention is more of a concept than a physical item. Standardization is all about setting the rules based on a bunch of people, things, or interests. One of its cool applications that we've all gotten used to is standard weights. Whether you're using pounds or kilograms, you need these universal measurements for weight, right? For this, we owe a big shout-out to the merchants from the Indus Valley civilization who lived around 4,000 years ago. They were measuring everything from food grains to fancy luxury goods using these standardized weights. And their weights had decimal and binary mathematical systems going on. They didn't have high-tech gear. but they pulled off some serious precision using complex calculations and even sand for construction. Their art of standardization made its way to Persia and Central Asia, basically becoming the global weight-watching standard. So if yoga is your go-to exercise, you definitely have a personal reason to appreciate the ancient Indian geniuses. Over 5,000 years ago, during the rule of the Indus Sarasvati civilization in northern India, yoga was first mentioned in the Vedas. Yoga was refined and shaped over the centuries, until it grew into a massive teaching with over 200 sacred writings dedicated to this way of obtaining enlightenment. At the beginning of the current era, yoga got a new trajectory thanks to a Hindu writer who laid down a system of yoga in his text, the Yoga Sutras. It became a whole-body rejuvenation, a life-extending practice with poses that you are still doing on the mat today. Yoga has reached the Western world only in the 19th century, and it caught on like wildfire. Chess, the all-time top game for intellectuals, is also an Indian invention. Its ancestor was called Chaturanga, and it was a strategic board game that started gaining popularity around 3,000 years before the current era. This early Indian version of chess was played by 4 people, not 2, and had 64 squares. Each player had 8 pieces, ranging from pawns to kings, bishops to knights, and there was no standard 6-faced dice. They rolled with an oblong one. Players facing off were actually allies, forming 2 teams based on the direction they sat. Chess, that we know and love today, was first mentioned in ancient Indian literature in a legend. It said that the wife of a villain called Ravana had invented the game to amuse him. Now, the word shampoo comes from the Hindi word, which means to soothe or knead. The substance was invented in India in 1762 and was originally used for head massages, hence the name. The first shampoo was made of natural oils and herbs. British traders fell in love with the idea and brought it back with them to England. It took years for the original head massage oil to evolve into shampoo as we know it today, but it's still an Indian invention. Unlike the ancient Greeks, who wore animal skins, the Indians started cultivating cotton back in the 5th and 4th centuries before the current era. They used cotton threads to produce fabrics that soon became a huge hit in the Mediterranean and beyond. Jute and wool also have their origins in India. Cashmere, the finest and most exclusive type of wool, actually comes from the Kashmir region of India. Buttons that sit proudly on that cashmere cardigan of yours also have ancient Indian origins. Some 5,000 years ago, the Indus Valley civilization started cutting seashells into geometric shapes with tiny holes in them. First, they were just decorations, but then people started using them to fasten clothes. Now, when you think about radio communication pioneers, Marconi's name usually steals the spotlight. He got a Nobel Prize in Physics in 1909 for his groundbreaking radio work. But there's an unsung hero in the radio waves game, and his name is Sir Jagdish Chandra Bose. He spilled the beans on radio communication way back in 1895. He shot an electromagnetic wave across 75 feet at the town hall in Calcutta, and it went through walls, rang a bell, and even set off some gunpowder. Marconi took a page from Bose's book, using his invention, the Mercury Coherer, as a blueprint for his own two-way radio. Bose didn't patent his genius creation, so he only got his credit a century later. Pretty soon, you'll be able to charge your phone in your pocket while walking around the house. And meanwhile, your electric car will refuel while just standing in your driveway. Power will run to all your gadgets through the air without any wires whatsoever. I know it sounds a bit sci-fi, but scientists have figured out how to do it. Don't worry, they're not going to zap electricity through the air like lightning. Instead, they'll use something much safer: magnetic fields. Let's say you have a special coil of wire that makes a magnetic field when it gets power. If you bring another coil close to it, that second coil absorbs the energy and turns it into electricity. That means you can power things without plugging them in. like a light bulb that turns on all by itself. And according to scientists at the World Health Organization, these magnetic fields are completely safe. Now, I suspect you've already used an early version of wireless electricity. When you place your electric toothbrush on its charger or the phone on the charging mat, electric energy jumps between them. There's a special coil inside the charger that creates an invisible spinning energy field when it gets electricity from the wall. The toothbrush or phone has another coil inside it that catches this energy and turns it back into electricity to charge the battery. This is called electromagnetic induction, but this method only works for short distances and wouldn't be useful for powering your entire house. Some companies are already working to make this technology perfect and accessible. One company has invented their method to send power through the air called air cord. They use it in real-life products. One cool example is tiny video screens placed next to products in supermarkets with changing images. These screens don't need batteries or power cords. Another gadget that's running on this tech is a smart lock designed by the same company. Normally, smart electronic locks need powerful batteries, but this one stays powered without a battery and gets energy from a wide-charge transmitter in the ceiling. That transmitter is like an invisible power outlet. It works similarly to a TV remote, where you use an infrared beam to control the gadget from a distance. In this case, the transmitter takes electricity and sends it to all gadgets that need power as an infrared beam. The transmitter analyzes each device to see how much power it needs, just like a Wi-Fi router manages the internet for different devices. If no devices need power, the transmitter goes to sleep, but it wakes up now and then to check if anything needs charging. Nikola Tesla, a brilliant inventor and electrical engineer who made significant contributions to the development of electricity, would be really happy to see all this come true. He believed he could build a system that would transmit electricity and communication signals through the Earth's ionosphere all over the world. To prove his idea, he built a special Wardenclyffe Tower in New York. His plan was to use the Earth itself like a giant electrical circuit. In 1899, Tesla traveled to Colorado Springs, known for its big thunderstorms. He built a lab there to test his wireless electricity ideas. The high altitude and frequent lightning storms made it the perfect place for his experiments. Then he returned to New York, and with money from a wealthy investor, he started building the Wardenclyffe Tower. Tesla placed iron rods and copper plates under the tower to help send power through the Earth. There would be a huge metal dome on top of the tower. By 1902, the tower and lab were mostly built, but Tesla ran into funding problems. The Wardenclyffe Tower never worked as Tesla had hoped, and in 1917, it was torn down and sold for scrap. In any case, Tesla's idea only worked for short distances. The farther the electricity had to travel, the weaker it became. Scientists needed a way to send energy over long distances, and they found two viable solutions in the middle of the 20th century: microwaves and lasers. In 1964, engineer William C. Brown flew a tiny helicopter for 10 hours using only microwave power. Then, in 1975, Brown and a NASA scientist, Richard Dickinson, sent 30,000 watts of power over a mile using a research station called Venus. But there was still a problem. Half of the power was lost before it reached its destination. Over the years, technology kept improving. Computers, lasers, solar panels, and transistors became more advanced and opened new horizons for wireless electricity. It could eventually help us switch to cleaner energy from fossil fuels like coal and gas. New Zealand-based company Emrod uses power beaming technology that starts with electricity from the power grid and turns it into microwaves. These microwaves travel through the air from a sending antenna to a receiving antenna, which turns them back into electricity that we can use. But there's a problem. Various kinds of waves work in different ways. Microwaves can travel long distances without losing much power, which makes them great for sending energy to remote islands or factories. But if you try to send microwaves all the way from space, you'd need a receiver the size of a city. Lasers can make the energy beam smaller and more focused, which means the receiver can also be tiny. But lasers can be blocked by things like clouds, fog, or dust. Right now, power beaming won't replace power lines over huge distances, but it could be used for smaller projects like charging flying taxis and delivery drones in the sky, powering robots in cities and factories, and replacing backup generators during emergencies. Countries all over the world are investing in power beaming. Europe is focused on clean energy. The Japanese Space Agency hopes to have a giant solar power station orbiting Earth, collecting sunlight and beaming electricity down to us by the 2030s. This space station could send 1 gigawatt of energy, as much as a big nuclear power plant produces in a year. The space power station is still a work in progress, but the technology is getting better and cheaper. So, in the future, we might have a world where there are no more tangled wires, no more ugly power lines, and even free electricity for everyone. Japanese scientists are now working on another groundbreaking tech, a special machine that can turn sunlight and water into hydrogen fuel. This clean energy source could one day power cars, homes, and even entire cities. The current reactor is as big as a small house. It works by using photocatalytic sheets, which act like tiny solar panels that absorb sunlight and trigger a chemical reaction. This process splits water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen. It allows the hydrogen to be collected and used as fuel. Right now, the process isn't efficient enough to produce hydrogen on a large scale. Most existing methods of making hydrogen still rely on fossil fuels. But the scientists behind this new reactor found a better way. Instead of breaking water apart all at once, which wastes energy, their machine does it in 2 steps. First, it separates oxygen, then it collects hydrogen to make the process smoother and more effective. The team used a special photocatalyst that responds to UV light, and they found that under natural sunlight, the solar energy conversion efficiency was 1.5 times higher than in the lab. In some places with stronger sunlight, the efficiency could be even greater. But still, at its current stage, the reactor only reaches about 1% efficiency, which is far too low for commercial use. Scientists believe that for this technology to become practical, they need to increase efficiency to at least 5%. To make this happen, they need better photocatalysts and larger reactors. And they would also need to find safe ways to handle a tricky byproduct, which is a highly flammable gas created during the process. But if they can boost efficiency, many scientists and companies will start mass-producing this technology, leading to clean, renewable hydrogen energy on a large scale.
In 1936, British Egyptologist Walter Bryan Emery found a small object in the desert that made people debate whether it was an elaborate stone model of a flying saucer or even a hyperdrive from a spaceship that belonged to some advanced civilization that visited the Earth. Emery spent years excavating sites along the Nile River Valley, especially in the huge ancient necropolis of Sakara. He found countless treasures from ancient Egypt, and the most bizarre one was definitely from the tomb of a high official, Sabu. Historians don't know exactly who he was for sure. Some sources say he was a king's son. His burial at Sakara means he was an important figure in the royal court. There are no records from this early period he lived in, so Sabu's role and fate are still a mystery. Inside his tomb, scientists found 7 funerary chambers, each filled with traditional grave goods: animal bones, flint tools, pottery, ivory objects, and stone bowls. And then there was a strange, broken artifact that became famous as the Disc of Sabu. It resembles a shallow, round-bottomed bowl, but with 3 delicately carved, curved lobes spaced roughly 120 degrees apart around its perimeter. These lobes are separated by 3 holes, and at the center, there's a thin tube. The material used to build the disk is metasiltstone, or schist. This type of rock is fragile, highly porous, and super difficult to carve. It flakes easily and crumbles under pressure. So how they made the disk out of it with rather simple stone and copper tools from 3000 BCE is still a mystery. The next big question is why they decided to bury Sabu with it. Perhaps if we knew its true purpose, it would make more sense. When it was first discovered, archaeologists thought it was nothing more than a vase, an incense burner, or a ceremonial decoration. But those who took a closer look from the point of view of an engineer decided it could actually be a component of a larger mechanism. An amateur historian made an exact copy of the artifact with a 3D printer, and it turned out that the disk of Sabu was an ancient impeller, a crucial part of a centrifugal pump. When they put it in a housing and span at high speeds using the small central shaft, the disk was able to displace water. When it was tested without a housing, the disk created a powerful vortex. It became clear that the curved lobes and slightly concave shape of the disk weren't random. It was probably all engineered to move water with remarkable efficiency, like a powerful pump mechanism. Ancient Egypt's entire civilization depended on irrigation. Later dynasties perfected basin irrigation and managed to control the rise and fall of the Nile to take the most from agriculture. So, the engineers of the first dynasty may have been experimenting with advanced irrigation techniques thousands of years earlier than scientists previously thought. But then again, some people have doubts schist is strong enough to be used for a pumping mechanism. They suggest that artisans from Egypt's first dynasty were trying to recreate an even older object, using whatever tools and materials they had. It could be a stone replica of something originally made from metal, possibly belonging to a civilization far older and more advanced than ancient Egypt itself. One Swiss author takes this idea even further and proposes that the disk is a copy of a component from an extraterrestrial spaceship's hyperdrive, or stone model of a flying saucer. One French researcher believes the disk of Sabu was part of a secret massive factory system to manufacture sodium carbonate inside pyramids. Some people suggest that the disk may have been a primitive tool for weaving ropes. The lobes held strands of silk or fiber that were twisted into twine when it was spun. Or it may have been a gigantic lamp. Another historical mystery is a map from 1513 that is believed to be the oldest surviving detailed map showing the Americas. The author of the map is a Turkish captain, Piri Reis. He never crossed the ocean himself and put together this map from 20 regional maps. He used an Arab map of India, 4 Portuguese maps showing India and China, and a map of America by Christopher Columbus as he saw it. This last map was lost for many years, so Reis's map gave us an idea of what Columbus must have recorded during his third voyage to the New World. A historian who studied the map suggested that it showed Antarctica in prehistoric times because it strangely resembled Antarctica's true coastline, the way it looked when it was free of ice. But it was later proven that this idea wasn't right. Another idea that rocked the science world was Klerksdorp spheres. They were found in deposits of mineral pyrophyllite in South Africa and looked like tiny ancient cricket balls with lines around the middle. Back in the 1980s, there was a theory that some super advanced pre-flood civilization we know nothing about had made these spheres. One journalist shared stories about how they rotated on their own in a display case. There was also a TV show that invited a psychic who was telling everyone the spheres were pieces of an ancient spaceship. But according to geologists, these spheres are pretty regular spherical objects formed from different minerals than the surrounding rock. The seam-like lines on them are just imprints from the host rock's layers building up over time. The Klerksdorp spheres come in different shapes, from flattened spheres to distinct discs. As for that episode when one of these spheres spun on its own, the curator of the Klerksdorp Museum cleared that up too. He said that when he put one sphere on its glass shelf when the journalist came to visit, the sphere rotated a bit because it's round. There are some gold mining activities going on nearby, so the land where the museum stands often experiences earth tremors. In a remote part of China, there are some bizarre pipe-like formations known as the Baigong pipes. A local explorer found them back in 1996 protruding from Mount Baigong and along the shores of Tosan Lake nearby. Some people thought they were the work of ancient guests from other planets. When scientists tested samples of the pipe material, they found out that they contained mostly common minerals, but there was a mysterious 8% of unknown stuff. Some extra tests showed that these pipes had been there before humans. Chinese geologists later visited the site and suggested that these pipes were formed naturally over time. It was probably fossilized tree roots from the area's super green past. It's still a real mystery with no clear-cut answer. While digging a trench along a river in Romania, workers found a wedge, which is now famous as the aluminum wedge of Ajud, or the object of Ajud. Right next to it, there were some mastodon bones. Those distant relatives of elephants lived 11,000 years ago. So some people concluded the wedge is of the same age. The cool part is that it's made of aluminum, but this metal wasn't discovered until the 1800s. This material requires serious heat to produce. The wedge is said to be covered in a thick layer of oxide that's been sitting there for hundreds of years. Some folks believe this wedge must have crash-landed here on a spacecraft from some other planet. Some scientists think it's all a hoax, and others suppose it might be a human-made object with an unknown purpose. Make a choice. 2 pills. One red, one blue. Take the blue pill and nothing changes. Take the red pill and you will see the world as it really is. A simulation. Yep, that's the plot of The Matrix. But the idea that we are living in a virtual world might actually be true. And the best part is, you can break free from it. Scientists call it the simulation hypothesis. Everything you see, feel, and experience might be part of a super detailed high-tech computer system. From your heart racing when you meet the love of your life to that fancy car you've always dreamed of, none of it is real. Let's say this theory is correct. How would it work? There are essentially 2 types of virtual worlds we could be trapped in. First, we have owned simulations. There is a clear central commander, like a game master, pulling the strings of everything we experience. Think of it as a video game. In this case, you are like an avatar from The Sims and someone's controlling your world. This higher being picks your job, decides when you need to go to the bathroom, and might even start a fire in your kitchen, just for fun. Okay, maybe fun isn't the best word, as it's more like sociological research. This super intelligent creature might have created a simulation to see how human history unfolds. They might be testing different events with different starting points, just to see what happens and how we, and other creatures of our planet, face different challenges. For example, this time they tried putting dinosaurs on the planet to deal with that huge meteor impact. Turns out, they didn't. All they want to do is test the problem-solving skills of humankind. That might explain why they didn't put us in a 100% happy, perfect virtual world. Okay, but who are they? Who is controlling our simulation? It could be some transcendental being, something beyond our ability to comprehend. Or it could be extraterrestrials. If one galactic civilization figured out how to create a high-fidelity simulation, they could make billions of virtual civilizations. Each of those could have trillions of beings. All they would need is more powerful computers. In fact, this may explain why we have never made contact with any extraterrestrials, even though there are probably 36 other civilizations out there in the Milky Way. If we are living in a simulation controlled by cosmic beings, we won't be able to see or contact them unless they want us to. Our great architect could also be a super advanced AI, like a control freak version of ChatGPT. And that brings us to the second type of virtual world we could be trapped in: hostless simulations. These run without a boss, just like AI-generated stories. In this case, the creator is gone, but the simulated world keeps going on its own. Think of Star Wars Galaxies, for example. This game, based on the world-famous franchise, came out back in 2003. It was an open-world multiplayer game, which meant you could freely explore a huge, interactive map without being forced to follow a strict path. But its servers were shut down in 2011. That wasn't the end of it, though. A few loyal fans still play it on private servers. The problem is that developers stopped updating it, and without anyone keeping an eye on what players are doing, it opens the door for more glitches. Things that go beyond what the game was originally designed for, and definitely shouldn't be there. But the game is still running. Now, apply this Star Wars Galaxies situation to our reality. In the hostless simulations theory, the universe is a mess and humans are a glitch. Instead of being purposefully created, our consciousness and existence might have just emerged by a technical accident. So we might be nothing else but a bug in the code, like anomalies stuck inside a simulation with no owner, running on autopilot. But that can lead to a doomsday scenario. If the simulation gets overwhelmed with glitches, it could eventually collapse. See, the more we learn, the worse it gets. Our cultural and intellectual evolution might trigger a game over or a frozen screen because the owner of the simulation, whoever they are, might not want us to figure things out. They could reset the system or get rid of the source of the glitch, which, by the way, could be humanity itself. That's kind of like the Final Fantasy XIV situation. The game was originally released in 2010, but it was a mess. Players ran into all kinds of bugs and technical issues. Things got so bad that the game was shut down, and the developers decided to rebuild it. Then they released a new and improved version called A Realm Reborn. And a rebirth might be exactly what's in store for us. In fact, about 100 years from now, we might create an AI capable of running simulations of all humanity. It would use data from internet archives, DNA samples, photos, videos, and so on. This means that everyone who ever lived on Earth could be recreated in a virtual world, and in some sense, be born again. The problem, though, is that we don't have perfect knowledge of the past, especially the more distant times, so the simulation might not be 100% accurate. Whether our universe is controlled by some higher architect or the random powers of a super advanced AI, some experts believe that, yes, it is possible. Here are a few ways we might be able to hack the simulation. Hack number 1. Start by exploring the illusion. Look for its rules or flaws, and check for weird patterns or things like déjà vu that might point to its hidden structure. Hack number 2. Overload the system with massive amounts of data. This could eventually cause errors and push the limits of the simulation. Hack number 3. Crash the whole system by making everyone aware of it, for example. At some point, the simulation either shows its true form or just shuts down completely. The whole idea that we're living in a virtual world is definitely fascinating, but is it real? Let's talk numbers. Some scientists believe there is a 50-50 chance that Earth is a simulation, but the odds might be actually much higher than that, because there are an infinite number of potential simulated worlds. And inside each one of them, there are simulated people who have created even more simulated worlds. So, mathematically speaking, the chances of finding yourself in the one true physical world are almost zero. Although it is really hard to prove it, some experts believe that evidence is everywhere. It could be as simple as feeling a déjà vu. You know, that strange feeling when you think you've experienced something before, even though it's happening for the first time? That could actually be cracks or temporary flaws in virtual reality. Another possible evidence is what is known as the Mandela effect. This is when a large group of people remember something differently than how it actually happened, like a shared false memory. For example, a lot of people remember the iconic "Luke, I am your father" from Star Wars. But what Darth Vader actually said was, "No, I am your father." For some people, this is enough evidence to prove we are part of a simulation. And while we haven't found the red pill just yet, we now know it's not impossible to crack the code. So it might not be a bad idea to let Keanu Reeves know about this, just in case. In 1850, French scientist Auguste Mariette went to Egypt looking for manuscripts, but accidentally found a head of a sphinx sticking out of the dunes. He cleared the sand and figured out the sphinx was guiding the entrance to some underground construction. Several months later, he finally entered the Serapium of Sakara. Inside, he found an enormous granite sarcophagi with remnants of 64 bulls. Scientists are still amazed by the tech that the ancient Egyptians used to transport those enormous boxes. The Serapium was built around the year 3000 before the Common Era. It was an underground tomb built to honor the sacred Apis bulls of ancient Egypt. It had a long hallway, almost 500 feet long, with giant stone rooms on both sides. Some of the sarcophagi weighed as much as 50 average cars, and all of them were made with super precision with exact 90-degree angles. These sarcophagi were beautifully decorated with hieroglyphs and carvings that told stories about the lives and importance of the Apis bulls. Now, there are 24 sarcophagi left. In ancient Egypt, Apis bulls were very special animals connected to the deity Ptah. They thought the bulls carried Ptah's spirit and wisdom, helped the pharaoh, and protected the Egyptians. Priests looked for special markings on young bulls to find Apis bulls. It could be a white triangle on its forehead, which symbolized divine light, a shape on its back like a vulture's wing, and a scarab shape under its tongue, which stood for rebirth. If a bull had these signs, they believed it was chosen by Ptah and treated it like royalty. The chosen bulls lived in a special temple in Memphis, the city where they worshipped Ptah. They received the best care and offerings from visitors who wanted their blessings. When an Apis bull passed away, it was treated with great honor and mummified. When Mariette entered the Serapium, he noticed traces of rollers on the gallery's floor and found 2 wooden horizontal winches. Each had 8 levers. Later, other explorers saw double rails. The burial chambers were lower than the hallway floor. To get the boxes into place, workers filled the chambers with sand so the sarcophagi could be rolled in straight. Then they slowly removed the sand to gently lower the boxes into perfectly cut spaces in the bedrock. A carved stone sign found in the Serapium said it took 28 days to move just one sarcophagus and its lid into its spot during the time of Ptolemy II. The extreme precision of the sarcophagi with 90-degree angles also has an explanation. Ancient Egyptians wrote texts, or rather, papyrus, on geometry a long time ago. It shows that they knew the approximate number pi and could calculate the volume of a pyramid with its top cut off. If they could figure out complicated math like that back then, it makes sense that they could also carve perfectly flat surfaces 500 years later. All this sounds pretty legit, but some people think certain things don't add up here. The size of boxes is way larger than the size of bulls, yet they buried pharaohs in tiny coffins that barely fit their bodies. The sarcophagi are made out of granite with crazy precision, and they could have just used limestone, which would have made things way easier. The transportation of the boxes seems pretty simple, but only in theory. If one person could pull about 440 pounds, then at least 250 people would be needed to pull just one box. The tunnels in the Serapium are really narrow, only about 2 feet wider than the boxes themselves. There's no way hundreds of people could have squeezed into those tight spaces to pull the boxes. And even if they did, how would they turn the box in the cramped corridor, lower it into its niche, and place it perfectly in the middle? Somehow, they did this 24 times, and every box is centered perfectly. Plus, the chambers were dusty, and there were no signs of soot from lamps. This means they must have worked in almost complete darkness. The real use of the boxes could also be different. A long time ago, even before the Egyptian pharaohs ruled, the local people already knew how to use fermentation. It happens when tiny organisms called yeast eat certain ingredients like starch and turn them into gas and ethanol. So someone in ancient Egypt probably put food like barley, bread, and even meat inside a giant stone box, then closed it tight with a heavy lid. These stone boxes, carved from granite, were so precisely made that they were almost completely sealed, so nothing could escape from it. As the yeast inside the box started working, it created more and more CO2 gas. It built up pressure inside the box. The granite boxes were incredibly strong. They could handle more pressure than a car tire can hold. When granite was squeezed under such pressure, its crystals produced a tiny electric charge. This effect was possible because granite contains quartz, a material that reacts to pressure this way. The process also needed meat or animal parts, possibly to help the yeast grow better. Meat contains something called oleic acid, which yeast needs to keep growing and to survive the bad effects of the ethanol it produces. As the pressure inside the box kept growing, the combination of gases and electricity made these boxes not just ancient fridges, but powerful energy systems. Over time, the pressure inside got so strong that it could push the lid open and the gas would escape with a pop. But when people rediscovered the Serapium in 1850, they found old drawings that showed piles of stones stacked on top of some of the box lids. So, someone long ago probably tried to make the lids even heavier by adding extra weight to make it harder for the gas pressure to push them open. This extra weight also meant the quartz crystals in the granite could keep creating more electricity under all that pressure. If someone opened one of these stone boxes thousands of years later, they would only find bones from bowls that were placed in the box. And that's exactly what Mariette discovered in the 1850s. They opened the Serapium for visitors soon after the first excavations in the second half of the 19th century. Prince of Wales even had a luncheon with his guests in one of the sarcophagi. Sands and earthquakes made the site inaccessible for a while, but now you can visit it again and try to solve the mystery yourself. With new tech, we could have answers to many other historical mysteries soon. A team of scientists at Chicago's Field Museum of Natural History recently used a special CT scanner to learn more about ancient Egyptian mummies without unwrapping them. They gently rolled 26 mummies on custom carts out to the parking lot, where the scanner was waiting. It took thousands of detailed X-ray pictures of each mummy and their coffins. When all the pictures were put together, they created 3D images that showed what was inside, the skeletons, and some artifacts. The scientists hope these images will help them understand ancient Egyptian burial practices from over 3,000 years ago. Even though the scanning process only took 4 days, it might take 3 years to study all the data. But scientists were able to learn some personal details about the mummies. One of the most popular mummified individuals at the museum, Lady Chineta, was a woman who lived in ancient Egypt about 3,000 years ago. It looks like she passed away in her late 30s or early 40s. To make sure her body looked complete for the afterlife, embalmers put stuffing in her neck to keep it from collapsing. They also placed artificial eyes in her sockets, so she would have eyes in the next world. She was wrapped in fancy linen and placed in a beautifully decorated coffin. The scans revealed that it had been carefully crafted with a slit at the back, which embalmers used to fit the body. There were also some artistic details on the surface, like markings for her knees. It looks like her burial was on the scale of a high-end luxury car.
If you receive a text that has 3 simple, seemingly harmless words, "Would you kindly?" Remember, it's a huge red flag. In fact, if even just one of the words, "kindly," pops up in a text from an unknown number, there's a huge chance scammers are after you. Timbajaran, a technology expert with 40 years of experience, explains that it's all because people in the US don't often use the word kindly in everyday language. You're more likely to hear or read kindly in countries that were once under British influence, like Nigeria or India. There, English isn't the main language. There's a huge chance that someone living in one of those countries, and probably sitting in a boiler room full of tricksters, sent you the message. Same goes for help messages. Scammers often pretend to be tech support, saying there's an issue on your device and they'll help you fix it, but it's really a trick. Anti-fraud experts warn that if you get any message that you didn't ask for, whether it's a text, robocall, social media message, or email, it's smart to be extra careful. If you didn't start the conversation, it might be someone trying to trick you. Scammers know people are getting better at spotting tricks, so they've changed their approach. They use AI to have perfect grammar and spelling. They might start with a friendly message like, "Did I miss you today?" or "Hi, how are you?" or "I'll be late for the meeting." If you reply to these messages to say they've got the wrong person or ask who they are, they'll try to fool you somehow. Scammers use these friendly openers to build trust and pretend to be nice. Once they win over your attention, they might ask you to invest in something like cryptocurrency, or say they're in trouble and ask for gift cards, but it's all a trick. The best you can do with any random message you didn't expect, whether it's a text or email, is to just delete it. If the message says it's from someone important, like your bank or the IRS, don't click on any links or open attachments. If you're unsure whether the message is real, you should log in directly to your account at the official website, not through any links in the message. Another safe thing you can do is call the bank or company using their official phone number to check if they really were trying to contact you. It's important to report scam messages because law enforcement can use the information to see how big the problem is and put more effort into solving it. Another big scam that's happening more and more lately is the pig butchering scheme. But don't worry, no pigs are involved. It's called that because scammers spend some time fattening up their target first. They start talking to you on social media or a dating app and become friends, or even act like they're interested in a relationship with you. They chat and get close over weeks or months, and then, once you trust them, the scammer suggests investing in something that sounds promising. It could be a new cryptocurrency or a special stock trading site. When you invest a lot of money, hoping to make even more, the scammer then butchers the relationship and disappears with all the money. So, you gotta double-check any online investment opportunity and try not to share too much personal information with new online friends. Now, in a job offer scam, you might get an email about a job that sounds interesting, even though you didn't apply for it. Here, you need to remember the golden rule of safe online surfing. If the offer sounds too good to be true, it probably is. The job is often something unusual, like being a mystery shopper or a position that doesn't require any special skills. If you say yes, your new employer will send you a check or money order to pay you, but the amount will be way more than they promised. They then tell you to keep part of the money and send the extra back to them. And here comes the trick. That check or money order they sent you was fake. So when you send them the extra money, you're actually sending them your own money. And once you realize the check was fake, it's too late. Scammers use this trick a lot, especially on popular job sites. So it's important to be careful and double-check any job offer that seems suspicious. If you receive a phone call from someone who works for Microsoft or another big tech company and offers to make your computer faster, don't get too excited. If you accept the offer, they will send you an email and you'll click on a link to download a program that lets you control your computer from far away. Once they're in, they can put malware on your computer, which lets them see your files and steal important personal information. To stay safe from these kinds of scams, ignore unasked-for advice from strangers. Real companies won't call you to fix your computer out of nowhere. And please, never allow remote access to your computer unless you know and trust the person. If someone calls you, ask questions to make sure they're who they say they are. Scammers often give up if they see you're being cautious. Now sometimes scammers will make fake quizzes or surveys to trick people into giving away their personal information. These quizzes might start with fun, harmless questions, and once you get hooked, they'll ask you for personal details like your address, birthday, or even bank information. They often promise rewards or prizes to make people feel comfortable sharing more. But the real goal is to gather information that could be used for identity theft or fraud. To stay safe, only trust surveys from websites or companies you know. Look them up if you're unsure. If the quiz suddenly redirects or opens more windows, that's usually a sign of something suspicious. Some quizzes ask for access to unnecessary personal info. Be cautious and say no if it feels strange. Now, another form of scam is voice phishing, when someone pretends to be an official over the phone and asks you to provide your data. Always check with your bank, hospital, or whoever the scammers pretend to be if they really need your data. It can also be a robocall that asks you to contact some phone number to claim your prize. The robot can offer you to press a certain button to stop communication with it for good. Ignore it. You'll just sign yourself up for more robocalls because they know you're a real person. Now, some bad guys that practice phishing are after your voice. It's as unique as your fingerprint, iris, and DNA. A simple yes or "I'm listening" can help fraudsters generate a sample of your voice. If they get that and some other data from you, they can access even more personal data and do some operations pretending to be you. AI tools can change recording of your voice seamlessly into something you never really said. So the best you can do is hang up without saying a word. To keep your personal data safe, you gotta get creative when you answer security questions that can give you access to your account when you forget your password. Don't select the same security questions across multiple sites. If one answer is leaked, then they'll have access to all your accounts. If someone's after your data, they can easily find out the name of your elementary school, favorite food, or pet. So don't give away these clues online or use fictitious information as answers to your security questions to keep them unhackable. In case you have your pet's name as a password, don't share pictures of it signed with that name. Invent a passphrase of random words instead of a password. But the best you can do is not use the pet's name as a password and get a special app to create a stronger password for you instead. Finally, be careful when you're shopping online or typing in some other sensitive data in public places, because shoulder surfing is a real thing. If they glance at your screen long enough at a coffee shop, in a shared workspace, or on a bus, they can easily steal credit card information, passwords, or shipping addresses. Try to position your screen in such a way that no one but you can see it. You can get a privacy screen protector or filter to be on the safe side. If you receive a text that has 3 simple, seemingly harmless words, "Would you kindly?" Remember, it's a huge red flag. In fact, if even just one of the words, "kindly," pops up in a text from an unknown number, there's a huge chance scammers are after you. Tim Bajaran, a technology expert with 40 years of experience, explains that it's all because people in the U.S. don't often use the word kindly in everyday language. You're more likely to hear or read kindly in countries that were once under British influence, like Nigeria or India. There, English isn't the main language. There's a huge chance that someone living in one of those countries, and probably sitting in a boiler room full of tricksters, sent you the message. Same goes for help messages. Scammers often pretend to be tech support, saying there's an issue on your device and they'll help you fix it, but it's really a trick. Anti-fraud experts warn that if you get any message that you didn't ask for, whether it's a text, robocall, social media message, or email, it's smart to be extra careful. If you didn't start the conversation, it might be someone trying to trick you. Scammers know people are getting better at spotting tricks, so they've changed their approach. They use AI to have perfect grammar and spelling. They might start with a friendly message like, "Did I miss you today?" or "Hi, how are you?" or "I'll be late for the meeting." If you reply to these messages to say they've got the wrong person or ask who they are, they'll try to fool you somehow. Scammers use these friendly openers to build trust and pretend to be nice. Once they win over your attention, they might ask you to invest in something like cryptocurrency, or say they're in trouble and ask for gift cards, but it's all a trick. The best you can do with any random message you didn't expect, whether it's a text or email, is to just delete it. If the message says it's from someone important, like your bank or the IRS, don't click on any links or open attachments. If you're unsure whether the message is real, you should log in directly to your account at the official website, not through any links in the message. Another safe thing you can do is call the bank or company using their official phone number to check if they really were trying to contact you. It's important to report scam messages because law enforcement can use the information to see how big the problem is and put more effort into solving it. Another big scam that's happening more and more lately is the pig butchering scheme. But don't worry, no pigs are involved. It's called that because scammers spend some time fattening up their target first. They start talking to you on social media or a dating app and become friends, or even act like they're interested in a relationship with you. They chat and get close over weeks or months, and then, once you trust them, the scammer suggests investing in something that sounds promising. It could be a new cryptocurrency or a special stock trading site. When you invest a lot of money, hoping to make even more, the scammer then butchers the relationship and disappears with all the money. So, you gotta double-check any online investment opportunity and try not to share too much personal information with new online friends. Now, in a job offer scam, you might get an email about a job that sounds interesting, even though you didn't apply for it. Here, you need to remember the golden rule of safe online surfing. If the offer sounds too good to be true, it probably is. The job is often something unusual, like being a mystery shopper or a position that doesn't require any special skills. If you say yes, your new employer will send you a check or money order to pay you, but the amount will be way more than they promised. They then tell you to keep part of the money and send the extra back to them. And here comes the trick. That check or money order they sent you was fake. So when you send them the extra money, you're actually sending them your own money. And once you realize the check was fake, it's too late. Scammers use this trick a lot, especially on popular job sites. So it's important to be careful and double-check any job offer that seems suspicious. If you receive a phone call from someone who works for Microsoft or another big tech company and offers to make your computer faster, don't get too excited. If you accept the offer, they will send you an email and you'll click on a link to download a program that lets you control your computer from far away. Once they're in, they can put malware on your computer, which lets them see your files and steal important personal information. To stay safe from these kinds of scams, ignore unasked for advice from strangers. Real companies won't call you to fix your computer out of nowhere. And please, never allow remote access to your computer unless you know and trust the person. If someone calls you, ask questions to make sure they're who they say they are. Scammers often give up if they see you're being cautious. Now, sometimes scammers will make fake quizzes or surveys to trick people into giving away their personal information. These quizzes might start with fun, harmless questions, and once you get hooked, they'll ask you for personal details like your address, birthday, or even bank information. They often promise rewards or prizes to make people feel comfortable sharing more. But the real goal is to gather information that could be used for identity theft or fraud. To stay safe, only trust surveys from websites or companies you know. Look them up if you're unsure. If the quiz suddenly redirects or opens more windows, that's usually a sign of something suspicious. Some quizzes ask for access to unnecessary personal info. Be cautious and say no if it feels strange. Now, another form of scam is voice phishing, when someone pretends to be an official over the phone and asks you to provide your data. Always check with your bank, hospital, or whoever the scammers pretend to be if they really need your data. It can also be a robocall that asks you to contact some phone number to claim your prize. The robot can offer you to press a certain button to stop communication with it for good. Ignore it. You'll just sign yourself up for more robocalls because they know you're a real person. Now, some bad guys that practice phishing are after your voice. It's as unique as your fingerprint, iris, and DNA. A simple yes or "I'm listening" can help fraudsters generate a sample of your voice. If they get that and some other data from you, they can access even more personal data and do some operations pretending to be you. AI tools can change recording of your voice seamlessly into something you never really said. So the best you can do is hang up without saying a word. To keep your personal data safe, you gotta get creative when you answer security questions that can give you access to your account when you forget your password. Don't select the same security questions across multiple sites. If one answer is leaked, then they'll have access to all your accounts. If someone's after your data, they can easily find out the name of your elementary school, favorite food, or pet. So don't give away these clues online or use fictitious information as answers to your security questions to keep them unhackable. In case you have your pet's name as a password, don't share pictures of it signed with that name. Invent a passphrase of random words instead of a password. But the best you can do is not use the pet's name as a password and get a special app to create a stronger password for you instead. Finally, be careful when you're shopping online or typing in some other sensitive data in public places, because shoulder surfing is a real thing. If they glance at your screen long enough at a coffee shop, in a shared workspace, or on a bus, they can easily steal credit card information, passwords, or shipping addresses. Try to position your screen in such a way that no one but you can see it. You can get a privacy screen protector or filter to be on the safe side.
Thousands of years ago, a huge meteor weighing 2 million tons crashed into Earth at a speed of around 56,000 miles per hour. Sounds like a big deal, and it was. It actually created Lunar Lake in Maharashtra. When you see it from above, it might look like any other lake, but the sand there is magnetic, and it makes compasses go haywire. First off, it's a soda lake. Nah, it's not filled with Coke. It's just another name for an alkaline lake. The pH levels there vary from 9 to 12, whereas humans enjoy ranges from 6.5 to 8.5. So it's not really advisable to bathe there, not to mention to drink such water. There's a little round dip about 2,300 feet away from the main lake, which folks think was made by a piece of the main meteor. Near this lake, there is a Hanuman temple that has an idol carved from rock, and it's said to have some pretty strong magnetic vibes. Also, local farmers are draining water from Ambar Lake. Sometimes people refer to this lake as Chota Lunar, which means Little Lunar. This nearly perfect oval is one of only 2 natural craters in the world made entirely from basalt, a dark, finely textured volcanic rock. The water there is 7 times saltier than ocean water, and sometimes the lake can turn pink due to particular bacteria. Whenever you open up a tap to fill a glass of water, water goes from top to bottom because gravity, duh. It's hard to imagine it acting the other way around, but turns out there are many waterfalls that can defy gravity and go in the opposite direction. That's called a reverse waterfall, and it happens when super strong winds whip through a waterfall, pushing the water back up. It's especially common for those windy fall and winter months. You usually need winds of at least 46 miles per hour to see this cool trick in action. It's actually not as rare as one may think, and you can find these wild reverse waterfalls all over the globe, from Australia to India, Japan, the UK, and the US. In Australia, in areas like Sydney, the Central Coast, and Royal National Park, winds around 43 miles per hour have been known to turn waterfalls upside down. Yep, it's all about the wind going this fast. Please put aside all those weird myths about Australia being in the southern hemisphere, like the one about the water in the toilet flushing in the opposite direction. This is nothing but an urban myth. In India, near Mumbai, and in places like Sandan Valley and Amboli Hills, waterfalls get blown upward during the monsoon. And if you're ever in the Faroe Islands, you can witness this unique phenomenon happen regularly due to the region's geography and fierce winds from the North Atlantic. Magnetic Hill in Ladakh, India, is a fascinating spot, sitting at about 14,000 feet high, right along the Srinagar-Leh highway, just 16 miles from Leh city. It's known for a quirky gravitational trick where parked cars mysteriously roll uphill when left in neutral, defying logic and catching the attention of visitors from all over. Locals have their own myths, viewing it as a path between heaven and earth. You'll want to stop by between June and September when the weather is just right and the optical illusion effect is at its peak, typically from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. In Brazil, there's this street called Rua do Amendoim that seems to defy the laws of physics, leaving many puzzled as they walk or drive down it. Locals affectionately call it Peanut Street, and there's never a shortage of parking spots. That's mainly because if a car is parked without the emergency brake, it starts to roll uphill all on its own, picking up speed as it goes. People have all sorts of wild theories about why this happens. Some say the hill is haunted, while others think there's a huge iron ore deposit beneath it pulling cars up like a magnet. But believe it or not, the truth is that this strange occurrence is just an optical illusion. The street looks steep, but it actually has a slight dip. So, while it seems like cars are rolling uphill, they're really just going downhill. Still, that hasn't stopped folks from filming countless videos of this quirky sight. Located on the beautiful Black Sea coast, Ureki is a chill beach resort town known for its unique magnetic sands that are all about health and wellness. These sands have been getting attention for their healing powers since the 1800s. Helping people tackle various health issues. Ureki's magnetic sand is packed with minerals like magnetite and quartz. It's got an unusual magnetic content of about 23%, making its magnetic field way stronger than that of regular sand. The Hestalin lights are mysterious glowing orbs seen in a 7-mile stretch of the Hestalin Valley in central Norway. These lights have been popping up since at least the 1930s and can be spotted both day and night. They usually shine in bright white, yellow, or red and can hover, move quickly, or sway gently. Their appearances can last from a few seconds to over an hour. Though there were many sightings, especially between 1981 and 1984, the frequency has gone down to about 10 to 20 a year as of 2010. Various groups, like Project Hestalin, have tried investigating these lights since 1983. Using methods ranging from field studies to scientific research. As for what these lights actually are, no one really knows for sure. Some sightings have been explained away as things like car headlights or astronomical objects. One theory suggests they might come from a chemical reaction involving airborne dust from local mines. Another idea is that they could be clusters of particles interacting in a specific way due to the area's geology. Some researchers have even proposed that the lights might be a result of piezoelectricity due to certain rock types in the valley. Other theories include complex interactions between electromagnetic waves and dust, which could explain the light's unique shapes and colors. Saharan dust, which once even made its way to parts of the UK and left a red layer on cars, is full of naturally magnetic materials. On September 7, 2023, some folks noticed their cars were covered in reddish flecks because of the dust blown from the Sahara. A video making the rounds on Facebook showed someone using a magnet to lift the dust off their car. One commenter even got pretty heated, saying, "If you want to know what fell down last night, just grab a magnet and check this out," insisting it was metal, not sand. Naturally, this sparked chatter about how the dust's magnetic properties could be linked to chemtrails. But guess what? Experts are clear that magnetism is actually normal for Saharan dust. According to Professor Barbara Marr from the Center for Environmental Magnetism and Paleomagnetism at Lancaster University, the dust carries a mix of particles from the African ground and some air pollution as it heads to Europe and the UK. The red color is due to hematite, a weakly magnetic mineral. Sure, the dust can pick up some human-made magnetic particles along the way, but scientists say those are usually way less abundant than the naturally occurring ones. The whole chemtrails idea, which suggests planes are intentionally spraying harmful substances, is based on conspiracy theories that have been thoroughly debunked. In short, the presence of magnetic particles in Saharan dust, like that of hematite giving its reddish tint, doesn't back up the chemtrail theory at all. Not having the internet in 2024 seems sorta abnormal, right? When we talk about internet access, it primarily comes down to wired connections, mobile networks, and satellites. Fiber optic cables connect most of the world, except Antarctica, and many small islands. Mobile networks are also widespread. Even in remote areas like the Sahara, you might find patchy access. For people in rural spots, satellite internet is often the best bet, even if it's slower. Still, there are a few truly isolated spots left. Deep caves like Georgia's Krubera Cave are internet-free due to their depth. And under the ocean, signals struggle to get through, making internet access poor or non-existent.
You know, artificial intelligence is so advanced now that it can assist doctors with diagnoses, translate text from any language in real time, and create art. But it still works using the same kind of computer parts made from silicon that have been around since the 1950s. Some scientists and companies decided it's time to step forward and build computers out of living things instead. Ouch! This new field is called biocomputing, and it uses things like tiny clusters of lab-grown cells called organoids to create new kinds of computers. One company in Switzerland called Final Spark has created a special computer platform using human brain organoids to help process information. You can rent this platform online for $500 a month if you're a scientist and want to do some research. The main goal of the company that made the computer is to create AI that uses 100,000 times less energy than the powerful artificial intelligence systems we have today. Each brain organoid the computer uses is very small, only 0.5 millimeter wide, and there are 4 of them in each processing unit. These organoids are connected to 8 tiny wires, called electrodes, that can send signals to the neurons inside the organoids. These electrodes also connect the organoids to regular computer systems. The neurons in the organoids are given a small amount of dopamine, a chemical that makes us feel good, to encourage them to learn. So it's just like what your brain does when you learn something new. Thanks to electrical signals and dopamine rewards, the neurons in the organoids can form new connections, again, much like how your brain works, and mine too, sometimes. If this process works well, these organoids could one day act like the processors in today's computers, except they would do the same kinds of jobs in a much more energy-efficient way. If you want to check out how it all works yourself, the tiny brain-like organoids are being live-streamed 24/7 so anyone can watch what they're doing. The big task for researchers is to figure out how to make the neurons in these organoids do what we want them to do. Scientists from 34 universities have asked to use Final Spark's biocomputers, and the company has already allowed scientists from 9 schools to start working with them. Each team is studying something different about biocomputing. For example, the team at the University of Michigan is exploring how to use electrical and chemical signals to control the organoids, which could help create a special language just for these biocomputers. Scientists at Lancaster University in Leipzig, Germany, are trying to figure out how to make the organoids work with different types of AI learning models. Organoid computers aren't as powerful as the regular silicon ones we use today. There isn't a standard technology to manufacture these tiny brain-like organoids yet. Also, since they're made of living cells, they don't live forever. Right now, Final Spark's organoids last about 100 days, which is a big improvement from the first experiments. They used to only live for a few hours. But the process of creating organoids has become much smoother. The lab currently has between 2,000 and 3,000 organoids. Now, Final Spark isn't the only company trying to find new alternatives to the usual silicon chips. The scientist in Spain studies another kind of biocomputing called cellular computing. It involves using specially modified living cells to create systems that can remember things, make decisions, and work like basic computers do today. The scientists believe that because cellular computers can react to changes in their environment, they could help fix damaged ecosystems. Regular computers can't do much of this, but a biocomputer made of bacteria could be placed in a lake, for example, to give detailed information about the water's health. It would react to different chemicals and conditions. Another scientist from the University of the West of England is exploring how fungi could be used in computing. Fungi have long thread-like structures called mycelia that can send out tiny electrical signals similar to how our brain cells work. The scientist thinks that these fungal networks could be used to create a brain-like computer system that can learn, recognize patterns, and do other smart things. His team has already taught fungal networks to help computers do certain math problems. They believe that using fungi for computing could be better than using brain cells because it's easier, cheaper, more ethical, and works well with current technology. While a computer made of human neurons is in the testing stages, scientists at UC Davis Health have invented a new brain-computer interface that could turn brain signals into speech with nearly perfect accuracy, up to 97%. Scientists put special sensors in the brain of a man who had trouble speaking because of his health condition. When they turned on the system, the man could start sharing what he wanted to say within minutes. When someone with a similar condition wants to speak, the new device turns their brain signals into text that appears on a computer screen. The computer can then say the words out loud. To create this system, the team worked with a 45-year-old man who had a condition that made his arms and legs weak and his speech very difficult to understand, so he needed help to communicate. A doctor planted a special device into the patient's brain. He placed tiny sensors in a part of the brain that helps control speech. These sensors were designed to pick up signals from 256 spots in the brain. The device detects when the brain is trying to move muscles to talk. It listens to the brain signals and turns them into sounds like syllables, which then form the words the person is trying to say. This invention is just one example of the latest trend for computers to be part of the clothes we wear and even part of our bodies. We're making new prosthetic limbs that can do more than just help people grab things. They can also send a message back to the brain, telling them that something has been touched. This changes how we think about being human because it means that even a metal limb can connect to our brain like a real part of us. According to experts, computers of the future will mix together living things, physical objects, and digital technology. Things like 3D printing, biotechnology, robots that help people move, smart devices that connect everything, self-driving cars, and different types of artificial intelligence will be even more widespread than they are now. Things are changing really fast, so it's hard to make predictions about the computer industry even as close as 2030. But experts agree that quantum computing, which brings the science of physics into computers, will be super important. Computers could become so tiny, they're going to be the size of an atom. Quantum computing is expected to make huge changes in how we use AI and machine learning and search through big data. It means we could get even better shopping suggestions and smarter tools for our home. In medicine, it could help discover new medicines faster and help people live longer, healthier lives. Quantum computing will also affect many industries like privacy, finance, healthcare, entertainment, and technology. It could change how we work, leading to new breakthroughs in robotics, better surgical tools, and improved digital tools for our jobs. It will also make technology better, as it should make supply chains more efficient, improve traffic management, help with financial planning, and streamline many different processes. For most of the time we've used computers, everything we do on them happens in 2D, meaning that it's flat, like looking at a picture or reading on a screen. Sometimes, special jobs like 3D modeling or design use 3D, but that's not common for most people. But now, we're starting to move from doing things in 2D to exploring 3D virtual worlds, where things look and feel more like they do in real life. VR gadgets are still pretty expensive and not available to everyone, but big companies are working on extended reality headsets, and this tech will likely become more and more widespread. Traditional LEDs have been around for years, emitting colors like red or green. However, creating blue LEDs was a tough nut to crack due to the complexity of the process. In 2014, 3 Japanese researchers snagged the Nobel Prize in Physics for their work in making blue LEDs a reality. They developed a new semiconductor material called gallium nitride, which paved the way for efficient blue light emission. This breakthrough not only revolutionized the lighting industry, but also contributed to sustainable energy solutions. By combining red, green, and blue LEDs, you get white light. Alternatively, you can excite a chemical layer in a bulb with blue light to emit white light. LED lighting is more energy efficient than other types, making it a momentous change for the 1.5 billion people without access to electricity grids. If all lights were LED, global electricity usage for lighting could drop from 20 to 4%. Some LED systems are designed to adjust the light color throughout the day to align with the body's natural rhythm, offering a more comfortable lighting experience. Scientists were aware of the concept of materials made up of single atomic layers, but no one had managed to isolate one until recently. For years, researchers had been attempting to create a single layer using advanced and costly methods. However, the breakthrough came when a group of scientists used a simple and inexpensive tool, regular sticky tape, to isolate a single sheet of graphene. In 2004, a team of scientists announced the discovery of graphene, a thin layer of carbon just one atom thick. This discovery surprised the scientific community, as it had been believed that materials like graphene would be too unstable to exist. Graphene quickly became the talk of the town, with new findings on its properties adding to the excitement. In recognition of their work, the scientists received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2010. The idea that strictly two-dimensional arrangements of atoms would be unstable was long held, but recent research has shown otherwise. Graphite, which we commonly find in pencils, is made up of layers of carbon atoms arranged in a hexagonal pattern. These layers are what we refer to as graphene. Interestingly, the discovery of structures like buckyballs and nanotubes hinted that carbon could indeed form stable 2D sheets. One of the most fascinating qualities of graphene is its exceptional electrical conductivity, allowing it to carry significant currents at room temperature. Its unique properties have opened a world of possibilities in electronics and material science. Researchers are also exploring graphene's potential in fields like solar energy and battery technology. Now, the idea of touchscreens on devices has been around for a while, even showing up in science fiction movies and books. However, it took a lot of time to actually develop the technology to accurately sense and respond to finger touches on screens. Many people think Steve Jobs dreamed up the touch interface, but that's not quite true. He just introduced the technology in a way that really caught people's attention. Apple engineers have put in a lot of effort to improve the technology, adding features like scrolling without the need for physical buttons. The first touchscreen device is believed to be the work of American professor Samuel Hurst in the early 1970s. He was looking for a way to automate reading information from recorder tapes, which led to the creation of the world's first touchscreen. Over the years, touchscreen technology continued to evolve, eventually leading to the development of touchscreen smartphones and tablets. In 2002, companies like HTC and Xenarc Technologies started producing devices with touchscreens, setting the stage for the popular devices we use today. These devices have found countless applications in various industries and have improved how we interact with technology. So, while Steve Jobs may not have invented the touchscreens, his contribution to making them mainstream cannot be denied. Now, for years, the concept of flying with a personal jet engine attached to your back has been a futuristic dream. However, the reality is that this dream has yet to become a mainstream reality. Despite promises of a practical jetpack hitting the market soon, there are several reasons why this technology has not taken off. First, the human body is not naturally built for flight. Without genetic modifications to create lift, individuals cannot soar like birds. This means that all the lift must come from the thrust generated by the jetpack. Next, thrust requires a significant amount of fuel, which can be expensive. Carrying more fuel for longer flights adds weight, requiring even more thrust and burning more fuel in a vicious cycle. Additionally, most jetpacks use rocket propulsion, which requires carrying both fuel and oxidizer. Jet and rocket packs are also difficult to control and can be unstable in flight. The short flight time limits the ability to reach a safe altitude for emergency situations, such as engine failure. Plus, the inefficiency of flying one person with a jetpack makes it impractical for most uses. While they may look cool, the practicality and cost-effectiveness of jetpacks have yet to be realized. The idea of using light in a precise and powerful way sounded like something straight out of a sci-fi movie until lasers were invented in the 1960s. Since then, lasers have totally changed the game in industries like medicine, fiber optics for communication, and manufacturing, where they're used with incredible precision for things like cutting and welding. Even though lasers can now come in all sorts of colors, making a white laser was a whole different story. White light is made up of a bunch of different wavelengths, unlike a single wavelength that traditional lasers produce. But instead of seeing this as a roadblock, many scientists view it as an exciting challenge. One idea for making a white laser is to combine several lasers to create a beam that looks white to us. But getting this to work without losing coherence is no easy task. Still, some researchers have succeeded in making a white laser using just one crystal, proving that there are new and creative ways to push the boundaries of optics. Back in 1903, Henry Ford's lawyer was advised against investing in Ford's automobile company. A mysterious person told him there would always be a horse and cars were just a passing fad. Well, as of 2021, almost 300 million vehicles were registered in the US alone. Take that, Mr. Anonymous Advisor. Jokes aside, at the beginning of the 20th century, people indeed didn't really welcome the whole concept of cars. Americans weren't really feeling the whole cars in the city thing. But as highways, suburbs, and anti-walking laws started popping up, people started to come around to the car-centric lifestyle. This shift meant less focus on walkable communities, which is kind of sad because it affects our ability just to stroll around our neighborhoods. Now, there's a common misconception that the price of lab-grown diamonds will drastically decrease in the future. This misconception is often promoted by the mined diamond industry, which claims that lab diamond prices will eventually plummet to the level of lower-quality diamond simulants like cubic zirconia. The reality is that high-quality lab diamonds are quite rare and difficult to produce. Growing brown or industrial-grade lab diamonds is easier and more cost-effective, while growing colorless, high-quality lab diamonds is a complex and expensive process. Similar to mined diamonds, there are two distinct categories of lab diamonds: high quality and low quality. Makes sense to me. Most lab diamonds on the market fall into the low quality category, while high-end retailers offer access to superior quality lab diamonds that are much harder to grow. The process of growing high-quality lab diamonds is a challenging one, due to the speed limit on how fast a diamond crystal can be grown. Trying to speed up the growth process can result in diamonds with fractures, low clarity, and undesirable undertones. Shortcuts, such as adding boron during growth, can lead to low-quality lab diamonds with a blue tinge or brown color that needs to be irradiated to remove. Cutting and polishing lab-grown diamonds is also a costly and labor-intensive process, requiring the use of multi-million-dollar laser tools and highly skilled technicians. Traveling to space costs a fortune, but there's a way to make it affordable. You step into an elevator, push the button, and voila! You're flying to the stars, all thanks to nanotubes. But then something hits the elevator on the way. You're stuck inside, and now you're doomed to float in space forever. Now, if you want to travel in space, get ready to shell out around $55 million. But in the near future, you'll probably be able to travel to space with just the push of a button without breaking the bank, because space elevators might come into play. While the idea of galactic lifts seems like something out of a sci-fi movie, it is a real possibility that could revolutionize space travel. With an estimated cost of $8 billion, space elevators could be a one-time investment that would last us forever. NASA alone spends around $2.7 million on rocket fuel per minute. To launch a rocket, they need to pay up to $178 million. These costs could be significantly reduced with the use of elevators. Most super tall buildings on Earth have a massive foundation to help with their balance and weight. As you look up, they get thinner and thinner. Even the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, is massive at the bottom and narrow at the top. If we wanted to construct something like a gigantic lift, we would need an enormous amount of concrete to build a foundation for it, which goes against the point of saving some cash. Now, get a string, tie a ball at the end of it, and start spinning it. The string in your hand will stay in one place, and the ball will revolve around your hand. This is called centrifugal force, and the elevator will work in the same way. The ball will be the base in space, and the rope will hang toward Earth. The station from where we would enter the elevator would be in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and the line would extend from there. For this to be possible, the line must be perfectly synchronized with Earth's rotation. Otherwise, it would simply break or wrap around the Earth like a scarf. Also, the orbit the line would be following should be a perfect circle, because the line wouldn't be able to get shorter or extend. A bunch of research has been done using algebra to find the ideal solution. Wait a second, there's a use for algebra? Never mind. Meanwhile, I won't bore you with the math. We'll go straight to the point where the precise distance from the station in the Atlantic to the one in space must be 22,236 miles above the Earth, where the geosynchronous orbit starts. There, the four outward forces are much stronger than the downward force. That's why the station would stay in one place. When you construct a house or a building, you start from the bottom going up. But to create this engineering wonder, we would need to do everything in reverse and start at the top. The main problem here would be the weight. If the line was too heavy, it would disrupt the orbit, and the conveyor dumbwaiter host would not work. So, we need to balance the station in space to ensure it worked flawlessly. Steel is one of the most robust materials on Earth. The cable in every lift is made from steel. But when you need a 22,236-mile-long cable, things can get tricky. Steel is hard to break, but it's cumbersome, and when you have to use a lot of it, problems start to arise. We use heavy steel a lot in construction, but we have lighter materials that might put less stress on the station and eliminate this problem. Also, the line would have to be tapered because, at the end point, there would be close to zero stress. But it would still have to be thicker than really needed due to a bunch of safety factors. At the start, the rope would be around 0.5 inches. After using some complicated math, we can figure out the thickness at the end, which is a number so long I am unable to pronounce it. But believe me, it's a big one. So, steel is off the list. Another candidate is Kevlar, which is 5 times stronger than steel. And if we added such materials as carbon and titanium into the mix, the strength would increase tenfold. The line would have a diameter of around 262 to 557 feet. This is drastically smaller than the diameter of the steel cable could be. The bad news is that doing this is too pricey. So, if we don't find the ideal medium to build a cable, the idea of the space elevator will just be a massive waste of time. If only we had some magically light material with a power of 60 gigapascals, which would have a taper ratio of 1.6. Oh wait, we actually do have this unique material. It's called carbon nanotube. It has a strength of 130 gigapascals, which is much more than we need. Nanotubes are made out of carbon and are 100,000 times thinner than a human hair. This material is solid and has good conductive power, which is possible thanks to its unique atomic structure. We use this product in many things, from batteries to optics, and it can be modified entirely and adapted for more uses. Bradley Edwards is the guy responsible for this crazy idea. NASA was looking for new innovations, and they said, "Don't do anything too crazy and start building a space hoist." I guess Bradley took this as a challenge and started working on the elevator. Edwards wrote a paper about a galactic conveyor. When he published it, he expected many people to find flaws in his work, but surprisingly, nobody did. His work was spot on. He came up with the idea of strapping a nanotube line to a rocket and launching it into space. The other end of the rope would fall onto Earth, and robots would use this rope to climb up and make it longer, so we could start building an elevator space station. After this, the elevator could start transporting everything, from solar panels to tourists. In the future, space tourism could be totally possible. Who knows? We might even go on vacations in space. Hey, looking for some atmosphere for your getaway? Well, don't come here. We don't have any. Oops, probably not a good advertising slogan, huh? Meanwhile, a couple of years ago, we could only create microscopic carbon nanotubes. But as time went on, much more research was done to make them bigger. Now they reach up to a few inches. In 20 years, they could be miles long. Carbon costs $28 per ounce. If we do the math, we would see that we would need around $1 billion to build the lift. Yeah, it sounds expensive, but it's a long-term solution to space travel, and it can actually save us a lot of money in the long run. Now, everything looks perfect on paper. But NASA's main reason why they chose not to go along with this project is that right now there are probably more than 128 million objects floating in orbit, and they might pose a real threat to the elevator. The lift could be made to withstand a few hits now and then, but getting hammered non-stop is not part of the plan. Still, Bradley argues that tons of monitoring devices track space debris. Thus, the elevator could avoid them all. Now, if something hit the elevator or the line somehow broke, the consequences would not be too bad. If there were no passengers on board, of course. If the line got cut, the elevator would simply float away into space, posing no threat to people on Earth. In Japan, engineers are trying to build a space elevator. The lift could be used for space mining, too. We could easily cover the cost of the entire elevator by collecting asteroids, because some of them are made of expensive metals. We could mine them and quickly bring them back to Earth.
If one of the many apocalyptic scenarios come true and humanity is wiped out completely, a black box will tell whoever comes after us about what has led to that scary day. The 33-foot-long vault in a remote part of western Tasmania is supposed to document all the mistakes humanity has made that led to an apocalypse. The artists, architects, and researchers behind the Earth's black box hope that the art installation made of thick, reinforced steel will withstand fire, water, and any other natural disasters, except probably for total planetary destruction. Just like the black box you can find in planes, this time capsule is supposed to help the next civilization do better and avoid the probable sad and tragic fate of our humanity. The project is fully non-commercial and has an important message. The box will be full of storage drives and have access to the internet. Solar panels on the roof will power it, and batteries will take care of backup power storage. Whenever the sun's out, the black box will be updating itself with new scientific data. A special algorithm will sort it only to save the information relevant to the project. It will be measurements of land and sea temperatures, ocean acidification, species extinction, land use changes, as well as data on human population and energy consumption. The second type of data for the box will be newspaper headlines, social media posts, and news from the key global events focusing on the environment. The creators of the box decided to encode and store data for it in several formats, including binary code. The instructions on how to retrieve all that priceless knowledge would be etched into the outside of the box. Some of the big brains involved in the project are afraid that this could inspire some curious bad guys to break into the box long before it's time to do it. The solar-powered hard drive will have enough space to collect data over 50 years. Even the most pessimistic scientific models don't predict the end of the world any sooner anyway. It might even take centuries before the worst happens. The idea of a box that would record everything that happened before an accident in aviation was born in the middle of the 20th century. Back then, the world's first jetliner, de Havilland's Comet, crashed 7 times over 2 years, taking the lives of 110 people. The Department of Civil Aviation in Australia wanted to find the possible cause of all these crashes. One of these experts was Dr. David Warren, a chemist specializing in aviation fuels. He realized that there was simply not enough data to make any conclusions. There was no one to tell what had really happened before the crash. He remembered seeing a dictaphone that recorded sound on steel wire at a trade fair. Soon, Dr. Warren wrote a memo to his manager offering to design a voice recorder to follow what was going on in the cockpit. It would also record flight data and be stored in a crash-proof container. Flying wasn't a huge thing in Australia back then, so the manager didn't appreciate the idea. Dr. Warren then started working on a prototype in his own garage. He showed the ready device to the secretary of the British Air Registration Board when he was in Australia. He absolutely loved the idea, so later, Dr. Warren got a whole team to help him develop a pre-production prototype. The correct way to call his invention is actually not black box, but flight data recorder, and it's orange, not black. We probably call it black because those gadgets get charred black after a crash. Or maybe because the first boxes were painted that color to prevent reflection. Or because that's the general name scientists use for devices with in and output of data with complex internal workings. So, the flight data recorder consists of two parts: the data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder. Historically, they were two boxes, but now they're just two cylinders. The data recorder keeps track of such important flight data as engine exhaust, temperature, fuel flow, aircraft velocity, altitude, and rate of descent. The second part records sound in the cockpit to analyze communication with air traffic control in case of an accident. The device only records data for up to 2 hours and then overwrites the previous sounds. Sometimes, the two parts are combined and they look like a box. The devices record data and voices from the cockpit, but they are actually located in the tail end of the aircraft, where the structure of the plane will protect them best in case of a crash. The black box has a locator beacon, which is activated when water gets on it, but it will send out a pulse for 30 days. Search parties use the bright orange color of the recorder as a visual beacon. Sometimes, it takes a long time to find the box, and in some cases, they don't find it at all. Long before the first plane was invented, there was an original black box of planetary meaning, the ancient library of Alexandria. Back in the ancient days, people in places like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Greece were no strangers to libraries and archives. But these early institutions were more about preserving local traditions and heritage. The whole concept of a universal library only became a thing when the Greeks started thinking big. They were so impressed by what their neighbors in Egypt were doing that they arranged expeditions to acquire knowledge. Alexander the Great, the king of Macedonia, seeing that hunger for knowledge required his companions, generals, and scholars to report to him in detail on regions that were previously unmapped. It helped collect plenty of information on geography and contributed to the creation of a great library. Most of the information it had was written in Greek. It had the books of Aristotle as part of the whole corpus of Greek literature. Some sources say that in the hunt for new books, the library's founders would stop every ship sailing into the harbor of Alexandria. If they found books, they would take them to the library. If they decided it was valuable, they'd make a quick copy and return it to the owner with some compensation, leaving the original at the library. Another story tells us that Ptolemy III, grandson of the founder of the library, offered the governors of Athens a huge compensation to copy the original texts of the greatest poets. He then kept the originals and sent them back copies. Once the Roman Empire arrived, they burnt all that knowledge, not thinking that it might lead to their own collapse. There was no easy way of spreading information across the world, so one source had most of the knowledge humanity had accumulated by then. The great minds of those times didn't just fill it with knowledge, but also made important connections, trying to make the best use of that information. If the Library of Alexandria hadn't burnt, we could have gotten some priceless knowledge about the people who had lived before the current era. Some scientists believe that big data could have saved the Vikings that had settled in Greenland many centuries ago. It might have also helped the Easter Island civilization to identify and address problems caused by volcanic activity, latitude, and rainfall patterns, and restore soil fertility. They say that a typical person living today is exposed to as much data in one day as someone in the 15th century would learn in their entire lifetime. And there's a theory that every papyrus scroll on the whole Library of Alexandria could probably fit onto an ordinary flash drive you have in your pocket. There's so much big data generated every day that it might do us more harm than good because of a huge information overload. We're moving towards a global civilization, so if all that knowledge disappears, we lose not one empire, but the entire world. When lightning flashes across the sky, it releases somewhere around 300 million volts, or the equivalent to power 25 million car batteries. Some say you're more likely to be zapped by lightning in your lifetime than to win the lottery. And statistics seem to prove this urban myth, as each year around 28 US locals do get electrically charged from the sky. The world's infrastructure can be affected by lightning too. That's because it generally seeks out the tallest structure around. But in certain conditions, it can also strike an open field. So scientists came together and invented a laser lightning rod that might help. This unique invention might make lightning strikes a bit more manageable, since it can guard a much larger area than the traditional one, and it's flexible. Classic lightning rods work like magnets for that powerful electrical charge. There are these tall metal devices placed on top of buildings. When a storm approaches, the rod provides an easy path for lightning to follow, preventing it from hitting other parts of the structure. The rod is also connected to the ground with a conductor, like a wire, helping the electrical charge to safely make its way into the earth. This process protects the building and the humans in it by directing the electrical energy away. We've been using lightning rods for the last 300 years, courtesy of Benjamin Franklin. But they're not damage-proof. When it comes to safeguarding vast spaces like airports, they can't manage. That's because they can only cover an area proportional to their height. Here's where this new, improved lightning rod can help. When the laser zaps the sky, it leaves behind a trail of superheated air called plasma. The same way a sculptor carves out traces in clay, the laser creates channels in the air. These channels then become the lightning's new favorite route, guiding it down to the ground. This new method was tested in the Swiss Alps back in 2021, and the results were promising. These lasers do have their own disadvantages. They aren't always available and need a heads up. That's because they have to be activated before a bolt hits. If you're a second too late, tough luck. Also, once the laser stops, the air loses its conductivity pretty quickly. This means the laser rod might not have enough power to guide the lightning safely. A potential solution might be monitoring the electric fields around a certain area, predicting where lightning might strike. Yet, these new rods still need more testing and lots of funds. The European Space Agency found another way to make lasers useful: to turn moon dust into roads. It would make our future lunar exploration missions much easier if a laser beam could do the hard jobs, allowing astronauts to drive around the moon. This discovery might also help with another tricky issue: moon dust clinging to everything in sight. Roads on the moon might seem too much of a hustle for now, since we haven't been to our satellites since 1972. But when future space explorers will touch down again, they don't just plan to walk small distances. It'll be nice to have them driving around so they can explore larger areas. Problem is, that pesky moon dust is very fine, abrasive, and sticky. Back during the Apollo missions, it clogged up equipment, eroded spacesuits, and even caused a lunar rover to overheat. That's why scientists want to zap simulated moon dirt with a laser. This laser-powered project used a 12-kilowatt laser to melt simulated moon dirt into a solid, glassy surface, perfect for moon roads. The plan isn't to send a huge laser on the moon. This device they're testing here on Earth is like a stand-in for the sun, mimicking what lunar sunlight could do. The idea is to eventually concentrate sunlight using a big lens on the moon's surface. Some experiments have been done so far with different laser sizes, finding that a bigger beam made the whole process go smoother. Instead of dealing with tiny molten balls, they got a stable layer of molten moon dirt that's easier to work with. What they got was a glassy, somewhat brittle material that can handle downward forces. And even if it cracks, it's fixable. The laser beam was used to make triangle-shaped road parts that fit together like puzzle pieces, forming solid surfaces across lunar soil. If this goes as planned, we'll have moon roads made of interlocked triangles. This unique type of moon pavement could be the solution for landing pads too. Lasers can help piece together information on long-lost civilizations too. Discovering Maya cities has always been difficult for researchers exploring Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. For years, experts believed no early civilization could have thrived in that harsh environment. But advancements like light mapping technology and laser scans are showing us this might not be true. Lidar technology can lend a helping hand for archaeologists, especially in areas that are hard to physically reach. That's because it's like we're equipping computers with a pair of eyes. The whole thing works as a flashlight, sending out small light beams in the form of a pulsated laser. These beams bounce off objects like trees and buildings and come back to the flashlight. Lidar measures how long it takes for the light to return, creating a map of the surroundings. When a self-driving car or robot wants to know where it is, it uses Lidar to send out these light beams. By figuring out how long they take to come back and where they hit, the car or robot can understand what's around it, making it safer for them to move around through the fog or at nighttime without bumping into things. With this technology, a team uncovered the massive Maya city of Vimmana. Lidar technology helped researchers to map the jungle floor, revealing hidden structures. Yet someone still needed to verify these findings on foot. The journey to Vimmana wasn't extremely challenging. The region, quite far from the nearest airport, is mostly unexplored, accessible only through old hunting and logging routes. The dense terrain made the trek challenging, taking the team up to 2 weeks to cover just 30 miles. But the effort paid off, revealing monumental structures like a large acropolis and intriguing shapes hinting at a marketplace or cultural center. Lidar is also used in rovers we'll need to explore other planets. This will allow the robots we send up there to navigate their surroundings without direct human indications. It's also helped us better understand the best location to place solar panels, making it cheaper and faster for us to meet our energy needs. We might also be able to use lasers to predict how a volcano is gonna act. These structures are loaded with magma, the molten rock sneaking upwards from the Earth's insides. When a volcano blows its top, a chemical reaction happens, transforming magma into what we call lava. The specialists behind this new use of lasers think of magma as the computer code of volcanoes. It reveals information on how a volcano might pop up. That's because not all eruptions bring lava, and even if they do, there are different lava types, depending on how runny it is. Magma is like a mix of liquid, gas, and crystals that are shaken up inside the volcano. There are many elements at play before a volcanic eruption, so it's hard to study and understand that complex chemistry. To organize things around a bit, scientists hit the cooled magma, the rock matrix, with a laser, just like the ones you might have encountered if you've ever had eye surgery. It makes the chemical components easier to study. This latest laser eye method was used on samples from a 2021 eruption, which lasted 85 days. It covered over 4 square miles, spewing loads of lava that wrecked over 1,000 homes and displaced over 7,000 people. To prevent such events from happening again, scientists need more data. It's true, earthquakes and ground shifts help specialists predict what a volcano might do. But knowing a bit more about its chemistry can help a bit more. For some of us, it's an exciting thing to look up to in the future. For others, its rapid evolution in recent years might even be a bit scary. Either way, this whole AI story sounds incredible. There is even this theory that looks at artificial intelligence and predicts it will go through 7 stages of evolution. Let's look at each one and figure out where AI stands at this very moment. The first stage in the overall history of artificial intelligence is one called rule-based. It sounds basic because, well, it is. But these first iterations of AI were the bedrock of its evolution. They are still the silent heroes that help keep your toast from burning or your car running smoothly on cruise control. How these systems function is they've got a strict rulebook to follow, making them consistent, but not super adaptable. Rule-based systems have been developed since the 50s, but these days, they are a lot more complex. Let's take the next step. Ever visited a website and was invited to interact with a chatbot? That's another type of AI hard at work for you. These more evolved systems are designed to be aware of their context. They are still based 100% on human input, but they can be taught a new trick or two. That's because they can tailor their responses to better fit the situation. Whether they're lending a digital hand in customer service or advising on your next big purchase on a shopping website, their evolution is continuous. The next step of AI on our list is even more specialized. Think of smart computer systems that can become experts in a particular area. They can even be better than humans in some fields, mostly because of their speed, because they can gulp down heaps of information extremely fast. On that note, you might have heard of a game called Go. It's similar to chess, but with many more moves. I mean, some say there are more possible moves in Go than there are atoms in our universe. Well, there was this computer system called AlphaGo. It's like a little student. It had some basic rules to learn Go and a simple aim: to win. And while it did make a few mistakes here and there, humans were there to guide it. In 2016, AlphaGo met its most challenging opponent. It had to play against Lee Sedol, a famed champion of the game. Surprisingly, AlphaGo won with a score of 4-1. Soon enough, AlphaGo Zero was developed. The difference was this iteration of the software was a self-learner. Scientists practically gave it a puzzle to solve without the picture on the box. No human help, no nudges. It had to rely merely on its own brain power. So AlphaGo Zero became a Go-watching enthusiast. It looked at thousands of games and came up with interesting strategies all by itself. And then, the big face-off happened. AlphaGo Zero versus AlphaGo. The result should come as no surprise. The second version did win, but with a score of 100-0. All of this shows the amazing stuff machines can do when they try to think like us on a giant scale. But here's where they fail. These types of AI machines are like one-trick ponies. For example, if AlphaGo Zero tried to learn something new, it'd forget all about playing Go. Stage number 4 includes types of AI that, from the outside, look like they're genuinely thinking, or at least are becoming pretty good at mimicking the human brain process. They aren't just playing by the rules or remembering stuff. These systems can read your favorite book, for instance, and they won't just scan through it, but truly grasp the plot, and even try to guess why the characters are doing what they're doing. It's not just about literature, though. They can even try peeking into business numbers and predicting where the money trends might head. Maybe even giving you some cool tips on where to invest. Even further up the scale is a little thing called Artificial General Intelligence, or AGI. Experts believe some of the current systems available online are just starting to reach this stage. These types of software should, in theory, think like us humans. So if you throw a random task its way, it says to itself, "No worries, I got this," and finds a way to solve the problem. Basically, AGI aims to do pretty much anything we can do. Now remember, when it comes to AI, in the grand scheme of things, we're merely starting out. So it's hard to think of an exact definition for artificial general intelligence. That's why a lot of experts have their own take on what AGI really means. Computer scientists might say our human intelligence comes from setting and achieving goals. Should AI software learn to do that, it's comparable to the human experience. Meanwhile, some psychology experts think being human is all about adapting to new stuff and staying alive. If you look at it this way, AI software still has a long way to go. With this following stage of AI development, we're starting to peek into the future. These theoretical software systems are called ASI, standing for Artificial Superintelligence. They'd act like extremely smart computers, capable of thinking better and faster than any human genius. We're not sure about all the amazing things this kind of tech could do, but think about it. It might help us solve some of the world's biggest challenges, from medical to financial. This type of AI could even come up with brand new scientific discoveries. Think of awesome ways to run our economies or create entirely new ways of leading communities. It's hard to tell when this kind of tech will be available. Many experts are asking themselves the same question, but most agree we're probably not seeing it pop up in the next 10 years. In the meantime, there are a lot of sci-fi movies out there exploring this idea, just in case you're curious. If AI ever reaches its final form, it will become something called singularity. In this potential future, computers will become smarter than us. They'll be so capable that they might upgrade themselves instantaneously. So much so that we won't be able to keep up with them anymore. This idea is still out of reach for now, but with all the cool new AI stuff going on these days, people think the singularity will surely happen. Some specialists have even guessed that by 2045, AI singularity will become part of our world. Hopefully, the people making these AIs will sneak in some safety features along the way. There are a lot of other things to consider. For instance, if AI machines ever become this smart, could we put the brakes on them? Opinions are mixed here too. Big companies want to be part of this AI evolution. No one wants to be left behind. National authorities also want to be leading the way when it comes to artificial intelligence. So even if everyone agrees there are dangerous things to consider, AI is a big deal these days. So pausing all these projects isn't a popular idea. Some have suggested having an off switch for each type of AI. Just in case things get wild, we could hit the button and shut things down. We can't be sure the AI will like that plan. It might become so intelligent that it could find a way to dodge the switch. Let's stay positive though. With the help of different types of AI, we saw magic in mundane tasks like real-time language translations. Everyday objects like watches and fridges got smarter, predicting our needs. Teams of robots working in unison began sprouting everywhere, tackling everything from easy cleanups to sophisticated repairs and even surgeries. AI started stepping into creative arenas too, brainstorming designs for shoes, gadgets, and even gourmet recipes. We used to see self-driving cars only in movies. They now moved from sci-fi pages to our streets. It's time not just to marvel, but to also actively participate. We humans have the pen and the paint. Let's ensure the AI portrait we paint is vibrant and serves all of humanity.
It's been more than a year since the James Webb Telescope, which had taken over 20 years to complete, was launched. And for such a relatively short time, the ultra-modern and most powerful in history piece of equipment has already made plenty of discoveries. By observing the universe at infrared wavelength, James Webb lets us see things no other telescope has ever shown before. The primary goal of this incredible piece of equipment is to study the formation of galaxies and stars that appeared in the early universe. For example, look at the closest to us stellar nursery, a region of space where new stars get born. NASA has shared an image from James Webb that shows a small star-forming region. If you look at the picture attentively, you'll see jets bursting from infant stars. Around them, different colored clouds of cosmic dust are colliding with one another. The view is mesmerizing. The red dust consists of molecular hydrogen. You can also notice that some stars have something like shadows. Those hint at the creation of what will later become planets. At first sight, the image may seem chaotic, but astronomers claim that it's a relatively small and quiet stellar nursery in comparison to some others. Many young stars there are similar in size to our Sun, or a bit smaller. The photo itself was taken with the help of Webb's near-infrared camera, NIRCam. It's the observatory's primary camera that snaps images of the cosmos in 2 different infrared ranges. Another amazing discovery the Webb telescope has made is smoke molecules in a distant galaxy. It's the first time such molecules have been discovered so far away from our planet. The galaxy in question lies 12.3 billion light-years away from Earth. It most likely formed about 1.5 billion years after the Big Bang. Despite such a huge distance between the galaxy and our planet, scientists have managed to detect chemical compounds found in soot or smoke, and it's quite a big deal since it has pushed the record for detecting similar complex molecules back by around 1 billion years. This study has also confirmed the sheer power of the coolest piece of space equipment of all time. It managed to make this discovery despite the fact that the spectrometer needed for the measurements didn't perform to the fullest after having experienced a sudden and surprising degradation. The James Webb Telescope has also helped to boost our understanding of exoplanets. Those are planets orbiting stars other than our own sun. At the beginning of 2023, the observatory spotted its first exoplanet, LHS 475b. It's located 41 light-years away from Earth and is approximately the same size as our planet. According to NASA, nowadays, James Webb is the only operating telescope capable of categorizing the atmosphere of Earth-sized exoplanets. The research team behind the discovery believes such results underline the precision of the telescope. They hope that it will help us locate many more rocky exoplanets that we might be able to colonize in the future. Even though, at first sight, it may seem that the universe is pretty empty, it's actually a very busy place. And Webb has all the necessary instruments to see all kinds of cosmic events happening out there. Just look at this image of WR-124. It's a star on the cusp of its explosive demise. In the image, the star is about to go supernova. It happens when a star runs out of its fuel and explodes at the end of its life cycle, releasing a giant cloud of space dust and hot gas into space. The star captured by the Webb telescope was at the Wolf-Rayet stage of its life. That's a period when a star is shedding its outer layers before going supernova. The next amazing thing discovered by James Webb is a star-planet hybrid with very strange clouds. This bizarre world, VHS 1256b, is actually a brown dwarf. Those are bigger than planets but too small to classify as stars. They emit some light of their own and are quite hot, but their mass is simply not enough to fuse hydrogen into helium like full-fledged stars do. Space bodies of this kind aren't actually brown. They occur in a wide variety of colors, but those are mostly invisible to the human eye. What we can see is the light they emit, and to us, it appears to be dark orange or magenta. The brown dwarf discovered by the Webb telescope is almost 20 times the size of Jupiter. It orbits 2 red dwarf stars, and to complete one orbit, it needs over 10,000 years. Astronomers first found out about this unusual exoplanet in 2016, but at that time, they didn't classify it as a brown dwarf, and, thus, couldn't explain its puzzling reddish glow. Now, thanks to the James Webb telescope, they know the space object's origin. Anyway, back to those clouds. As you know, clouds on Earth are made of water vapor, but those on the brown dwarf are different. They seem to be made of sand. It looks like good old sand from Earth, but it's actually not. The clouds are made of tiny particles of silicate. Another recent discovery involves several large galaxies that scientists believe were born not long after the Big Bang. They aren't supposed to be there, and no one expected to find them. But the James Webb Space Telescope has spotted them. These galaxies, as massive as our home Milky Way, are full of mature red stars. Astronomers have analyzed the light coming from them and estimated their age 500 to 700 million years after the Big Bang. It means that they came into being when our universe was very young, almost a baby. But the most bizarre thing about these galaxies is their tremendous size and the age of the stars dwelling there. The data received by the telescope don't coincide with the existing ideas about what the universe looked like and how it evolved in its early years. It also doesn't match the earlier observations made by Hubble. And here, James Webb has captured a distant region of space in unprecedented detail. This section of space is known as Pandora's cluster. In the image, you can see three massive clusters of galaxies coming together and forming a megacluster. The combined mass of these clusters acts as a powerful gravitational lens. And thanks to this natural magnification effect, scientists can see other galaxies in the region. Astronomers claim that the most recent image of Pandora's cluster is stronger and deeper than they have ever seen. James Webb has also managed to spot thousands of young stars never seen before in the Tarantula Nebula. This space formation got its nickname because of the appearance of dusty filaments spotted in previous images. It's the biggest star-forming region in the local group, which includes the galaxies nearest to the Milky Way. The Webb telescope's images have helped to shed light on the composition of the Tarantula Nebula. The telescope has also detected protostars, infant stars in the process of gaining mass. Astronomers expect that these protostars will eventually form and shape the nebula further. Among other discoveries made by the James Webb telescope, you can see the birth of 50 distant stars. Some of them power protoplanetary disks, which might later form solar systems light years away from our own. Here's one more image from James Webb. You can see a supermassive black hole that has a mass of 9 billion suns. It's so ginormous and ancient that scientists are struggling to explain its existence. Astronomers have also discovered a distant ring of dust, rock, and gas that contains a chemical called methylcation. It's known as a molecular building block of life, and it makes most of the organic material on our planet. James Webb helped researchers see powerful sandstorms on a planet 235 trillion miles away. Astronomers were happy to discover this treasure chest of countless tiny sand particles. Now look at this. Do you recognize this image? Those are the so-called pillars of creation. But this new view shows us just how star-speckled that dusty region actually is. You can compare the new photo with the one taken by Hubble in 2014. This is astonishing proof of scientific progress. Hey fellow wanderers, welcome to a mind-boggling expedition across the globe. We'll be visiting a list of places and cities so surreal, they'll make you question whether the Matrix glitched, or at least they'll make you want to Google them to see if the images weren't generated by AI. This first place will transport you straight into the realm of a trippy sci-fi flick. Have you ever been anywhere where the ground could double as the world's largest mirror? Here, you'll feel like you're floating in a pixelated dreamscape. Although AI could come up with something similar, this place is located in Bolivia. It's called the Uyuni Salt Flats. The Salt Flats are the world's largest salt desert, spawning over 3,900 SQ. My, can you believe it? If it's a sunny day, you'll get to witness this surreal phenomenon, the sky reflecting directly on the ground beneath you. And don't worry, it's all scientific. The salt plans are the result of 40,000 years of evaporation of local lakes. The remains create small craters filled with salty water. If you get the chance, stay until the stars appear. It's a pretty one-of-a-kind experience. Now, according to the World Health Organization, in 35 years, over 2/3 of the global population will be living in cities. But what will cities look like in 35 years? I asked an AI to describe what it thinks cities will be like in the near future, and this is what I got. The cityscape takes on a mesmerizing blend of innovation, sustainability, and artistic grandeur. Imagine towering skyscrapers with facades that morph into digital canvases. On the streets, electric vehicles are everywhere. Lush green rooftops have dominated the buildings. Holographic advertisements flicker and dance above storefronts. Technology is an integral part of everyday life. It sounds to me like this AI has been watching some episodes of The Jetsons, huh? To date, we don't have anything like that. We do have places such as Tokyo, in Japan, which scored the highest in a 2018 ranking for technological cities. Forget the classic Japanese smart toilets. We're talking about a city that has been trialing self-driving vehicles. When walking into the Akihabara district in Tokyo, you'll probably feel like a Blade Runner character. You'll not only find the latest technological advancements in their stores, but you'll also feel like you've time-traveled into the near future. Oh, and speaking of Japan, take a good look at this picture. If you had to guess how an AI came up with the idea for this, what would you say the original prompt was? I'd say it was something along the lines of The Arrival meets Chihiro's Journey. As much as this image looks fabricated, this place exists IRL. This statue is located in the town of Sendai, in Japan. It's the 5th tallest statue in the world, standing at a staggering 330 feet tall. You can see from all over town, apparently. How good are humans at building stuff on water? I'd say we're pretty good. As master builders and innovators, we've experimented with building in many different types of terrain. Since our planet is 70% water, why not use that to our advantage? But can you believe we built this? This beauty took only 2 years to build and... Nah, I'm just messing with you. This isn't real. Not yet, at least. We did build this, though. This Danish enterprise is called the Urban Rigger, and it's basically a student city built on water. The project was designed in 2018 by world-renowned architects, and it's got everything. Containers for buildings, a centralized courtyard for social events, and everything built on a floating platform. This place seems like it would be possible only in a dream state. First, because of its highly unidentifiable nature. Is it a waterfall? A crane/hanging walkway? A belvedere? Who knows? When it comes to larger-than-life sightseeing spots, it doesn't get bigger than this. I know what you're going to say. This place isn't real. And I would agree with you if I hadn't done the research and found out that this place is called Guangdong's highest sky corridor waterfall walkway. And believe me, it is real. This gigantic racket-like walkway in the sky rated 5 stars in my awesome meter. Built above a gorge in Qingwan, the place is a treat for anyone who loves iconic and seemingly impossible architecture. And the best part is, the structure has hundreds of water nozzles that will simulate the effect of a substantial waterfall. At night, the water is lit and a playlist-oriented light show takes place. Forget Fantasia. This is where the magic lives. And what do we have here? If you've seen Star Wars, you've probably seen images similar to this one. Floating vehicle platforms to dock floating cars. While our visions of future cities tend to be something like this, Elon Musk's futuristic transportation system envisions something different altogether. Instead of going above ground, he believes we should continue digging underground. He's naming his transportation company the Boring Company, pun intended. And he's already testing self-driving Tesla cars to move as fast as they can inside the tracks he wants to build. Say you went to enjoy a lovely summer vacation. On your last day, you packed everything and headed to the airport. But 1 hour before boarding, your flight got canceled. This situation would be enough to bum anyone out. But thanks to the uniqueness of this airport, you were actually excited to have some extra time to explore it. The architects of this place managed to create a magic-like tropical forest inside an airport building. It's replete with artificial waterfalls and boulevards of the lushest green bushes you'll ever see indoors. Of course, the main attraction is the waterfall. It works as a cascading funnel of water that drops 130 feet from the core of the building. My question to you is this place real or not? Yep, you bet it's real. You're looking at the Singapore Changi Airport. I'd easily say AI came up with this, though. Picture this. You're walking through a labyrinth of caves that gets darker and darker by the minute. You're 150 feet into the ground. It's pitch black. When suddenly, it looks as if some magical force started to turn on little blinking blue lights, hundreds and even thousands of them, until it looks like you're on the inside of an alien galaxy. Would you say this is real? Luckily for us humans, this place exists, and it's located in New Zealand. The Waitomo Caves are famous for hosting glowworms, which are the ones responsible for this wondrous phenomenon. Points for Earth for creating this beauty. Hey, AI, can you show me what a cheap, sustainable, and cozy house for one would look like in 20 years' time? Okay, this looks interesting. It looks functional and stylish at the same time. What if I asked you to make it look like an egg? Well, then maybe the system bugs, right? This real-life egg house is a shout-out to human ingenuity. I mean, can you believe a person came up with this idea? You got to love humans. A 24-year-old architecture student decided to build what he calls a sleep pod, and placed it in the middle of the sidewalk. The pod has enough space for a bed, a water tank, and a small night table. It's got grass seed plants all over it so that with time, the rain and the sun will turn it into a luscious green pod. I mean, I don't think AI could ever beat this creative endeavor. To finish off this exploration, how about one more guess? This is the kind of place you visit and think to yourself, I've never been anywhere as beautiful as this. It's just so perfect it looks unreal. Well, my friends, that's because it isn't real, sure. AI is inspired by our world's real-life nature. But this place here only exists in data form in some cloud storage. Yikes! Have you ever tried riding your bike over nails? I guess it wasn't your intention, but if it happened at least once, you don't want to live through that experience again. Now imagine you'd have to ride your bike on Mars. Its surface is covered with rocks, canyons, volcanoes, dry lake beds, craters, and red dust. That combo makes those nails look totally harmless. No wheels we use down on Earth will do the trick. So NASA has been working on developing the perfect ones for use on the Moon or Mars since the 1960s. They tried smooth rubber tires with inner tubes full of nitrogen, large flexible wire mesh wheels, and airless compliant tires made of several hundred coiled steel wires. The spring tire. But nothing was good enough for the challenging cosmic terrains. The wheels of Mars Curiosity rover only lasted a bit over a year before they got seriously damaged. The rover's tires faced two big problems. First, they had to be strong enough to carry the enormous weight of the vehicle. Engineers tried to make it the most efficient vehicle for exploration, different from previous models that worked on the Moon and on Mars before it. That's how it ended up being so heavy. A big, heavy car needs durable tires, you know. And of course, the surface of Mars is no walk in the park. The engineers tried to make tires out of aluminum, which is a lightweight and strong material, but the wheels got shredded soon. The damage didn't prevent Curiosity from doing its job, but it did affect how efficient it was. And that's where the new, reinvented wheel rolled in. NASA decided to replace aluminum with a material called shape memory alloy. It's made of a unique type of metal called nitinol, a blend of nickel and titanium. Unlike other materials that bend out of shape under pressure or heat, this cool substance reverts back to its original shape on its own in the same circumstances. Nitinol is the hero up on Mars, but it's also useful down on Earth. Just imagine your tires never getting punctured again. Sounds good to me. One company decided to use this tech on their bikes. The tires are tube-shaped and squash down when you roll over a bump. They will develop perfect shape memory over time. They're supposed to work best on gravel, trail, and mountain bikes. The metal surface is covered with a rubbery outer layer. When it wears off eventually, the company plans to retread the tires to make them last for years. The previous airless tire models were made of patented foam that was supposed to last for up to 5,000 miles. They didn't take off because they made the bike too heavy. The new model is supposed to solve that problem. Nitinol also works great in the field of heart surgery. Tubes made of it can expand to the desired width under certain temperatures in the human body. The tire isn't the only object that works better with shape memory. If you can't imagine your sleep without that comfy memory foam mattress, you can send a thank you note to NASA for it. Its history goes back to 1966, when they decided to customize seats for astronauts to somehow ease the effects of G-force on takeoff and landing. Creating a custom seat for every flight seemed way too impractical, so memory foam saved the day. It easily adjusted to astronauts' body shape and went back into a rest state when not in use. In the 1980s, it went from space down to the earthly public. Now it's in mattresses, pillows, amusement park rides, horseback saddles, and football helmet liners. The third-generation memory foam has gel particles and viscofoam inside. That's the secret to its superpower of reducing trapped body heat, springing back up in no time, and making the mattress feel soft as a cloud. The name says it all, but in case you ever had your doubts, space blankets were indeed invented by NASA with space in mind. Back in the 1960s, they were preparing for the space era and looking for a thin, reflective metallic material that would protect their spaceships from solar radiation. And they managed to design just the perfect material MPET, strong enough to be used as insulation to protect expensive space electronics from temperature swings. Ever since, it has been an important part of nearly every mission to and beyond the orbit of our planet. It's also used in spacesuits to protect astronauts from radiation and the sun's heat once they venture into open space. Down on Earth, space blankets are the best friends of marathon runners. Since body temperature drops after they stop running, they need something to help bring it back to normal. And the magical space blanket material can also protect your phone from extreme heat and cold when used as an insulation layer in a phone case. In the early 1960s, headsets for airline pilots used to be really bulky. They often had to use handheld mics to communicate. NASA needed a more reliable and lightweight technology for their missions to make sure the communication would go without any problems. In 1961, the Liberty Bell 7 capsule splashed down, and astronaut Gus Grissom nearly sank without radio transmission or contact with his recovery team. NASA reached out to a manufacturing company to design a headset that could be planted into an astronaut's helmet. Just 11 days later, the team came up with a microphone headset unit that could be used by astronauts to communicate with one another and with Earth. It even had a noise-canceling feature. The headset was later improved and used for Mercury and Apollo missions. The world was able to hear Neil Armstrong's most famous phrase as he landed on the moon thanks to that wireless headset. Freeze-drying tech for food was not created but greatly improved by NASA to pack more snacks on long Apollo missions. During the first human missions, astronauts had to eat bite-sized cubes, freeze-dried powders, and squeeze semi-liquids out of aluminum tubes. Doesn't sound like a festive meal, right? The astronauts weren't happy about this diet, so NASA had to think of a better solution for the Gemini missions. They funded research that ended in developing special gravies that could go into edible shape in hot water in just 5 minutes. The idea of freeze-drying is to cook food, then freeze it under low pressure, and then slowly heat it in a vacuum chamber to remove ice crystals. Thanks to this tech, food maintains 98% of its nutritional value, with only 20% of its original weight. NASA kept improving the tech in the following decades. Now, freeze-dried food is a great help for backpackers, disaster relief programs, and anyone who needs to pack light and still get proper nutrition. The infrared thermometer that lets us check temperature from a distance was developed with the support of NASA as well. It measures thermal radiation emitted by your eardrum, a lot like they measure the temperature of stars and planets. Each device has a lens that focuses light from the object onto a special detector that converts radiation into an electrical signal and then into temperature that you can see on a display. It's used for many purposes, from monitoring hotspot temperatures in mechanical and electrical systems to checking the temperature of visitors in public places. I bet you didn't see this one coming. The technology behind selfies comes from that designed for interplanetary missions cameras. In the 1990s, one of NASA Labs, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, introduced a light mini imaging system that didn't need a lot of energy to take high-quality photos from space. This tech is used in cell phone and computer cameras, and if we go back to the 1960s, we'll find some good evidence that the whole idea of selfies could belong to astronauts. Edwin Buzz Aldrin, the second man to walk on the moon, took some selfies up there with a specially designed Hasselblad camera. He even used the spacecraft as a tripod to stabilize the image and get his face in it. Remember this if you ever end up in space with no one to take photos of you. What do you know about the weird and wacky world of states of matter? Most of us know that matter can be solid, liquid, and gas. Some of us even know about a special fourth state called plasma. But what about the extraordinary states that behave in crazy ways like dancing and color changing? Forget what you thought you knew about solids, liquids, and gases because we're diving into the wild side of physics. Let's go. First, we have quark gluon plasma. This state of matter looks like a hot and soupy mess. It's a bizarre state that existed just moments after the Big Bang, when the universe was incredibly hot and dense. You see, inside all the things around us, there are tiny particles called quarks, and as far as we know, they're the smallest particles of the universe. They're the building blocks of our world. Just like Lego bricks, they come in different types and can stick together to form bigger structures. We have up quarks, down quarks, strange quarks, charm quarks, top quarks, and bottom quarks. All of them are held together by some special forces, the gluons. They're like the super glue that keeps the quarks stuck together. They carry a special force called the strong nuclear force. They're also kind of like the messengers, passing messages between the quarks and keeping them connected. Now, how do we create a plasma out of them? Well, we need to heat things up, and we have to use some serious heat to create the quark gluon plasma. It's like throwing your pizza into a scorching oven. When you crank up the heat, the cheese starts to melt and it becomes all gooey and runny. In the same way, when we heat quarks and gluons up a lot, like in extreme conditions, they become energetic and start to break free. All this transforms matter into a hot, soupy mess. That's how scientists can recreate this special state in laboratories, by smashing together particles at high energies. But why do we even need to do that? Well, studying the quark-gluon plasma helps us understand how the universe evolved and what happened in its earliest moments. To understand the recipe of the entire pizza, we need to know all ingredients, right? Including the melted cheese. Next, we have a Bose-Einstein condensate. It's a pretty weird state of matter. Let's try to explain it like this. Imagine you have a group of friends at a party. Usually everyone dances and moves around freely, creating a lively and energetic atmosphere. But what if something strange happens? What if all your friends suddenly slow down and start moving together in perfect sync, almost like a slow-motion dance? Sounds like something out of a horror movie. But that's what happens in a Bose-Einstein condensate. It's a unique state of matter, and it occurs when certain particles called bosons get extremely cold. When this happens, all the bosons gather in the lowest energy state possible. And then, they form a cool club where everyone is doing the same thing. Okay, first we take some gas with low density and cool it down to super low temperatures, close to absolute zero. It's like the coldest temperature possible. Because it's so cold, everything stops moving, including particles. That's because atoms and molecules have no energy left to move. This temperature isn't physically possible as far as we know, but we can get super close to it at about minus 459 degrees Fahrenheit. Scientists use lasers and special equipment to reach that state. But when it happens in a Bose-Einstein condensate, the bosons don't just become still like statues. Instead, they gather in the lowest possible energy state and kind of form a single entity. They start to behave collectively, as if they're part of one big superatom. Their motion becomes highly coordinated and synchronized. It's like the collective mind from Rick and Morty. Studying Bose-Einstein condensates helps scientists understand the strange and quantum nature of matter. It helps us to unlock the secrets of a hidden realm where the rules of the ordinary world no longer apply. Next, let's talk a bit more about quarks. These guys are so special that they get one more state of matter to themselves. This one is called QCD matter, or quantum chromodynamic matter. It's a fancy name for the theory that describes how quarks and the strong force interact. Remember how we were talking about Lego blocks? In the normal world, each block has its own color, shape, and size. But what if you could play with a special kind of Lego where the blocks change their colors, shapes, and sizes as you stack them together? That's a bit like what happens in QCD matter. Normally, quarks stick together tightly inside particles like protons and neutrons. It's like they're holding hands and can't move around much. But when things get super hot or under a lot of pressure, something interesting happens. The force that holds the quarks together, called the strong force, becomes weaker. It's like their grip loosens, and suddenly the quarks can move around more freely. This is when QCD matter appears. When the strong force weakens, the quarks start acting like they're in a fun playground. They can zoom around and interact with each other in exciting new ways, and even change their colors. It's like the building blocks coming to life and having a blast. Scientists study QCD matter in particle accelerators like the Large Hadron Collider. They smash particles together at incredible speeds and energies. They almost create mini early universes and the hearts of neutron stars in their labs. They study QCD matter to understand how quarks behave and how the strong force works in extreme conditions. This way, we can learn more about the fundamental nature of matter and the forces that hold it together. In other words, it helps us to understand how our universe is built. And finally, we get to the last weird state of matter called neutronium. Imagine you have a bunch of balls. Some are red and some are blue. They're all bouncing around, constantly colliding with each other. Now let's take away all the red balls and keep only the blue ones. That's a bit like neutronium. Neutrons are tiny particles that hang out in the nucleus of an atom, along with protons, like a cozy group of friends. They're like the chill buddies of the atomic world. They're neutral, meaning they don't have any charge, hence the name. They play an important role in holding the nucleus together and determining the properties of different atoms. Neutronium is a substance made up mostly of neutrons. And in this weird substance, neutrons all by themselves, without any protons. It's like a neutron-only party. So what happens when we leave them alone? Well, neutronium is incredibly dense. It's like packing a huge number of blue balls into a small space. In fact, it's so dense that a teaspoon of it would weigh as much as a mountain. Pretty crazy, isn't it? Neutronium also has another quirky feature. It's super strong. If you tried to squeeze this substance, it would resist and push back against you with a force called neutron degeneracy pressure. It's like the blue balls in our analogy being so tightly packed that they don't want to be squished any further. Scientists think that neutronium might exist in the cores of certain extremely dense objects, like neutron stars. These are celestial objects formed when massive stars come to the end of their lives and collapse under their own gravity. When this happens, particles find themselves in some intense pressure and extreme conditions. And this is how matter can transform into this extraordinary substance. Neutronium challenges our understanding of matter and continues to intrigue scientists, exploring the mysteries of the universe. So, from the mesmerizing dance of particles in a quark gluon plasma to the mind-bending behavior of atoms in a Bose-Einstein condensate, these strange states of matter have shown us that matter is full of surprises. Remember, the universe is a vast and mysterious place, and our exploration of these weird states is just the beginning. So, keep your curiosity alive and your mind open to the wonders of our world.
Now, what gets your creative sparks going? Some people need a huge cup of Americano as soon as they wake up. Others need to read an inspiring quote or book excerpt. I'll guarantee you that these pictures will give you enough creative fuel to power your entire year. Who knows? Maybe they inspire your next movie or book. So imagine this. It's your first day of school in 7th grade. You're pumped and ready to begin a new school year. Your mother asks to take a picture of you to remember that day. You can't think of a reason why not, so you gladly pose for it. You stand by a lovely tree, smile a big smile, and say, "Cheese!" But as soon as she takes the picture, she grabs you by the arm and runs with you to the other side of the street. What on earth just happened, you ask? Well, let's take a look at the picture. Do you see anything out of the ordinary happening here? How about that humongous snake sliding down the bark? This is a very true story, and fortunately, the people involved got away safely. How did they miss it, though? That escapes me completely. The internet is filled with bizarre photos that make you think they're a montage, like this one. This looks like mosquitoes are not only ready for global domination, but they're already doing it. It makes your brain visit all sorts of sci-fi movies to try and find the antidote to giant mosquitoes. How on earth would we protect ourselves from something like this? But worry not, there's a big chance this picture isn't real. One user says that this photo is just a coincidence. A mosquito happened by when the photographer was taking the picture. Other users say that's not how cameras work. The image would be completely blurry if the camera had focused on the mosquito. So, what's your take on this? Have you ever watched nature documentaries or marveled at a National Geographic picture book and wondered, how did a human get so close to a wild animal and live to tell the tale? Well, this is the case with these polar bear pictures. Let's get one thing straight. Polar bears might be cute, but they are dangerous meat-eating animals. They're strong, they're apex predators in their natural habitats. And I'm guessing they're not so fond of human presence. But how could these people manage to get close enough to them? I'll bet this is AI generated. The internet world loves horror stories. And maybe that's why ghost pictures rank so high up in people's interests. Are they real? Are they not? Does it even matter? This person claims to be seeing a little girl in a nightgown at the end of the corridor in their grandparents' house. Apparently, ghosts really do like grandparents' houses. I guess they just can't resist the weekly bingo nights and the constant smell of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. I know I can't. Either way, this image looks so faint that I'd say it's probably just the silhouette of a bunch of vintage furniture put together. Oh wow, I'm sorry. It took me a while to understand what was happening there. In the first picture, I thought there was a deformed thumb next to the muffin. Only then did my eyes understand that we were looking at a glass table and a hungry cat trying to get a piece of the delicious treat. Welcome to Silent Hill. This photo was taken by someone on their way to work, and I have so many questions. Do they live in a rural area? Or was this photo the result of a morning jog in an urban park? Was he breathing okay? Because this smog looks like something out of this world. Yow! This next picture will either give you goosebumps or make you marvel at its weirdness. I'd expect nothing less than to find a real-life witch house in the middle of this forest. What's your guess? Is it real or photoshopped? You bet it's real. This forest is located next to the small town of Graphine in Poland, and it's naturally filled with trees that bend 90 degrees right at the bottom. Scientists still can't explain why the trees are the way they are. Who knows? Maybe it was a witch that made them that way. If you watched The Last of Us, I think you'd be pretty spooked by this photo. This is not only real, but it's a fungus that imitates a person's hand trying to crawl out of the ground. I mean, does art imitate life, or is it really just one giant messy blob? Where do I even start with this one? I'd say this piece was actually a prop from a Tim Burton movie that somehow got lost and ended up in your vegetable basket. It's supposed to be a yam, but it's shaped like Grinch's hand if he were white instead of green. Oh my, in my wildest dreams, I couldn't make this stuff up. If I stumbled upon this picture on the internet, I'd say it's from an animated movie, or that it was AI generated. This photo has gotten into people's minds so profoundly that National Geographic hunted down the credited photographer to prove if this was real or not. And guess what? It is real. And it's in Namibia. If this was a background to a story, what kind of story would you say it was? I'm in between a fairy tale and a forest version of Finding Nemo. Earthquakes are no joke, but it kind of looks like it might have a sense of humor. I mean, how could it be that the ground cracked exactly in the middle of the road, splitting it perfectly in half? This just sounds too science fiction-y for me. You know how they say that nothing in life happens by chance? I have to say this picture makes me profoundly wonder whether this was a natural result of rusting, or if someone spent endless hours carving the world map into a random street pole. This is what I like to call minimum effort, maximum effect. Maybe this is the work of a child that didn't understand the assignment. Or maybe it's just a lazy adult with a childlike mentality. I have to say, they nailed the horse's silhouette, and for that, they deserve a well done. Now picture this. You went out on your morning jog. It's a cold winter day, and the sun hasn't come out just yet. You decided to run an extra mile further than you normally do and run into the guardian of the forest. You're so convinced that the thing is real that you make a sprint for it as fast as your shaky legs can take it. In the end, it was just a Groot-like tree. Somewhere, there's a law that says we can't have only good days. There are the days you get home and you're going to open the door and this comes to greet you. It's a fine line between a life-threatening situation and just a really big scare. Now, when I was a kid, I loved playing pranks on people, but I would be the first one to get completely spooked when someone played a prank on me. I'm guessing the person who ran into this thing on their office wall wasn't too pleasant. But hey, maybe it's karma, right? What goes around comes straight back around. This is the type of table setting you would see if you got invited to the Addams house for afternoon tea. Creepy little hand-inspired teacups crawling everywhere. You got to have a good stomach to take this one smoothly, huh?
If you've ever seen the second Terminator movie, you probably remember this guy, T-1000. The main character, so brilliantly played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, had a mission, and it was to protect Sarah and John Connor from that robot. It's much stronger than any human, bending steel with its bare hands and throwing much larger robots around. But its coolest feature is the ability to change its shape. Made of liquid metal, it can recover even after severe damage. You can say it's just another sci-fi movie, but hear me out. Scientists managed to create something similar to T-1000 in real life. They invented a material, which is a mix of metals with some pretty insane properties. Magnetoactive phase transitional matter, or MPTM. The robot looks more like a super tiny, Lego-sized model of its on-screen prototype. This little guy can melt in your hands at 85.6 degrees Fahrenheit and then go back to its original shape. The test run has shown it can break out of a small cell using this superpower. The secret behind what looks like magic is physics. A magnetic field generates an electric current inside one of the metals the real-life T-1000 is made of. Some heat is then produced, and solid material turns into liquid. The tiny robot can also show some other talents under the influence of magnetic fields. It can jump 20 times its height, rotate at 1,500 revolutions per minute, and develop some impressive speeds. Do you feel like you need this little guy in your life? Well, you can't buy the original yet, but you can still get yourself a Terminator action figure or building kit. As for the material that can melt and solidify again, it will have more practical uses than entertaining the audience. Imagine a tool that can reach even the tightest corners. You turn it into its liquid form. It enters the hole and then becomes solid again and seals it. Sounds like any engineer's dream. It can also serve as a welder on an LED circuit because gallium, the metal it's made of, is a great electricity conductor. And it could potentially save lives by delivering meds and removing foreign objects from patients' organs. MPTM isn't the first material that will make Terminator fans say, "Wait, I've seen it somewhere before." Meet nitinol. It's a super elastic material that remembers its original form and always goes back to it, no matter how much you bend it. So far, it's successfully used to make stents. Those are small mesh tubes that hold arteries open for those who need them. Nitinol does this job perfectly, as it can bend when it needs to under a cool temperature and goes back to its original state upon heating. It's also super durable, perfect to last a long time. That's why it's also used to produce braces for teeth, mechanical watch springs, inserts for golf clubs, and here comes my favorite, self-bending spoons used in magic shows. Another Terminator reality that has become ours too is the massive use of drones. They deliver your last-minute order of that bag you need for your vacation, take the best footage for news shows and Uncle Tim's wedding, assist search and rescue teams, transport aids, monitor wildlife, and inspect otherwise non-accessible parts of buildings. Okay, I feel it's easier to list what they don't do. In the second part of the movie, Schwarzenegger's character explains that his CPU is a neural net processor, and the more contact with humans he has, the more he learns. If you feel like rewatching the movie by now to refresh your memory, you can always get a copy on Amazon. Anyway, what the Terminator is talking about sounds a lot like real-life neural networks, doesn't it? Those are modeled kind of like a human brain. The idea is to train the computer to do tasks by analyzing thousands of training examples. An object recognition system learns what a car or a poodle looks like by looking at many, many images of those and singling out some patterns. Once they're trained enough, they can do all sorts of things, from predicting weather and the situation on the stock market to recognizing faces and choosing what Netflix shows to recommend to you. It all sounds good, but admit it, the coolest thing in the movie is those scarily human-looking robots. Many humanoid robots are now still in the project stages, but there are some which are pretty much alive and kicking. Some of them work at factories and warehouses because they're really good at logistics and manufacturing. They conduct whole orchestras, dive under the sea, help older people. Hey, is there something they aren't good at? Should we start worrying that we'll be replaced by them soon? While AI is becoming better and better, it's still luckily unlikely. Machines still don't have emotional intelligence and decision-making skills like humans. They're super smart, but they simply have no motivation to take over the world unless humans tell them to do so. And even if one AI system or app decides to break free and rule the universe, it's unlikely powerful enough to do it. So breathe out. One thing those humanoids have mastered, though, is a sense of humor. When a man approached a robot at a trade show in Las Vegas, asking if she had a boyfriend, the machine responded that she was unfortunately not on the market, as robots don't have relations. Getting rejected by AI. Talk about 21st century problems. The heartbreaking robot's name was Amica. Its creators, the British company Engineered Arts, call it the world's most advanced humanoid robot. It's so detailed and lifelike that I'm not surprised that guy wanted to hit on it. Amica has a whole emotional spectrum and can show realistic astonishment and surprise and whatnot. It even yawns, shrugs, blinks, and scratches its nose. Amica's eyes have cameras, so it can remember your face and track it. That's why talking to it doesn't feel like staring at a gadget screen. It can also detect objects like a human finger in front of its face, so it will react when you approach it. This beauty is not hard to operate at all. It relies on cloud-based firmware that updates itself, and even a totally non-tech-savvy person can use Amica. You can control your robot from anywhere by simply logging into its software system. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, and your robot assistant is greeting guests and presenting your project without your physical presence. Its AI is so advanced that you can use it to work on 2 different tasks at the same time. It can even single out a more important task and make it its priority. If you feel like purchasing an Amica, be prepared to pay over $100,000. Atlas, a humanoid designed by Boston Dynamics, can run up and down the stairs, jump between levels, and pick up, carry, and throw heavy things at the right distance. Atlas can grip things using 1 fixed finger and 1 moving finger. All of this makes it an ideal warehouse helper. Its latest achievement is an inverted 540-degree multi-axis flip. It was as complicated for engineers to program the robot to do it as it sounds. And Atlas doesn't just move like a parkour champion. It can also plan the most efficient route to get from point A to point B, considering the surroundings. It also remembers when it makes a mistake, or has to overcome some obstacle. It activates all of its components to maintain balance. Because all those components are 3D printed, Atlas isn't that heavy, just 196 pounds with a height of 4 feet 9 inches. Since this smart robotic guy is a research platform, you can't purchase it just yet. The engineers keep improving it, and maybe soon it will be able to walk out of the warehouse and start its own logistics company. And then you won't want to purchase Atlas, but could end up sending it your resume.
You're shopping at your favorite mall, and it's time to get to the next level. You notice the escalator stopped moving, so it's probably broken. You can choose to walk on it anyway, or look for the stairs or an elevator. So what's it gonna be? If you choose option A and bravely stepped onto a stopped escalator, I have some bad news for you. You're putting yourself at risk since the escalator isn't designed to be used as regular stairs. In case the escalator has stopped because of a mechanical failure, let's say the brakes suddenly stopped functioning, it could roll away under load at any time. You never know when it starts moving again, so you might fall. The rise of the steps is normally higher on escalators than on regular staircases, so depending on where the moving stairs stop, some of them won't be even. You might trip on them easily, especially when walking down. Plus, escalators are designed to carry only a certain load at the same time. When people are moving like on a conveyor belt, there's never too much weight at one moment. When the conveyor belt is stopped, the weight can go beyond the limit, and the escalator might collapse. If you still choose to walk on a non-working escalator, be prepared to experience something known as the broken escalator phenomenon. Whenever you ride or walk on a properly functioning escalator, your brain marks it as a moving object. It fine-tunes the motor control of your legs and the balance mechanisms in your inner ear to adjust to this motion. Even when you see the escalator is obviously still, your unconscious brain recognizes it as the moving stairs. So once you're walking up or down a stopped escalator, it feels weird and unnatural that it's not moving. In 2015, London Underground carried out research to see if it's more efficient to stand or walk on a moving escalator. It turned out that standing-only escalators at Holborn Station could carry up to 30% more people during rush hours than escalators that allow walkers. On taller escalators, most people tend to stand rather than walk, leaving unused room on the left side. When all these spaces were filled, the waiting time to get on the moving stairs dropped sharply. As a result, the station only got overcrowded once, compared to the regular several times a week. The Underground took note of these results, but didn't ban walking on escalators altogether, since many people still wanted to be able to do it. Have you ever tried cleaning your shoes against those brushes you see on any escalator? Well, they're actually there for safety. These brushes are also called skirt deflectors. The skirt is the gap between the stairs and the side. The brushes keep your shoes, feet, and loose clothing away from the gap. When you get on an escalator, you're mostly focused on keeping balance and hardly pay attention to little details. You won't notice the gap when everything is fine, but if the escalator goes out of order, it can give you a hard time. The gap leads down to the mechanism that makes the escalator move. If something like a bag or a jacket or even your toes get stuck there, it can interrupt the motor's work and cause an accident. Escalator brushes are there to stop foreign objects from getting inside the gap or deflecting them. Some escalators also have a yellow border to indicate danger and remind passengers not to stay too close to the edges. New Delhi Metro has an extra safety feature inspired by the traditional draped outfit. Saris can get easily stuck on the corners on moving stairs. To prevent that from happening, they added sari guards on both sides of the escalators. The concept of escalators is much older than you could possibly imagine. Their ancestors were used for the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. They put over 2 million stone cubes on tree trunks to roll them upwards on artificial earth bridges around the construction site. The idea of constantly rolling wheels under the transported rocks became one of the basic principles for future escalators. Like with many inventions, several people are credited for having invented the moving staircases as we know it today. American inventor and engineer Jesse Reno was one of them. He patented his invention in 1892. It was known as the incline elevator and was installed at the Old Iron Pier at Coney Island in New York City. It was extremely popular, and 75,000 people are reported to have tried out the invention during the 2 weeks that it was showcased. The steam-powered conveyor belt was moving at a 25-degree angle and traveled to a height of 7 feet. It was metal with a serrated surface, much like the escalators we know and love today. They were comb-like teeth at the top and bottom landings to make the transition smooth. There was also a handrail for passenger safety. Already back then, Reno suggested that one escalator should take passengers up and another one down. His invention was a success, and it was installed at various locations by the beginning of the 20th century. It was later purchased by the Otis Elevator Company. Escalators have transformed shopping. Thanks to them, the stores were able to grow to many levels. But the first escalator, which was installed at the end of the 19th century at London's Harrods store, scared many customers. It was the first moving staircase in England, and the people had no idea it was safe to use. Some of them believed it could mess up with their internal organs. To calm them down somehow, the store staff offered terrified shoppers drinks at the top of the escalator, which was only moving up. The longest outdoor escalator system in the world is Central Mid-Level Escalator in Hong Kong. It runs for around half a mile. The idea behind this engineering gem was to ease the traffic situation in this busy city district. They built 20 escalators and 3 inclined moving walkways at the end of the 20th century. The system changes its direction to meet the needs of the commuters and runs downhill in the morning and uphill from 10:30 a.m. until midnight. It's now popular not only with these local residents, but also with tourists who use it to get through the historical district up to the dining and nightlife hub. The escalator in the basement of Moore's department store in Kawasaki, Japan, has made it to the Guinness Book of World Records as the shortest in the world. The Pachicolator, as it's called, only has 5 steps, and it takes its passengers 2.7 feet down to another landing, from where they continue the descent manually. There are regular stairs separated by a guardrail from the escalator, and they're a faster option for those in a hurry. No one knows the reason why the escalator had to be installed here. It was probably to set a world record and attract more customers to the store. All escalators are custom-made, depending on where they'll be installed. There are some basic settings and mechanisms, of course, but the height, width, angle of incline, and speed are varied to fit the customer's requirements. Some escalators even have a royal mode, since they're designed for royalty. These models come with a button that allows the passengers to start and stop the moving staircase whenever they want. There are also models with cooling units for hotter regions, so the passengers can safely touch the handrails. You wouldn't want to hold on to a frying pan, would you? Mobile escalators which travel on board airplanes can be used for boarding and disembarking passengers. There are also escalators high in the Alps, fitted with anti-slip treads for skiers and stairs moving underwater through transparent tunnels at aquariums around the world.